The council chambers has reached capacity. I was just told by the fire department, we can no longer let anybody else in the council. It will be closed, and I could either suggest go out in the lobby and watch on your iPhones or whatever, but he just gave me the word that it's no longer open to anybody coming in. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call our city council meeting to order here on October the 15th in the council chambers. Mr. Morrison, would you please lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Fingers out, here we go.
Thank you.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Mayor Hogue.
Here.
Councilmember Morrison. Here. Councilmember Randalls.
Present.
Councilmember Raymond.
Here.
All right, good evening. Before we start, I was just informed that if you're in the lobby outside of the chamber, you are welcome to come in and speak. And I guess the fire service gentleman there will let you in and escort you back out. So we're going to get underway here. First thing is public participation, and I do have a lot of cards. If you have 2 and 3, 4, 5 people want to speak on the same thing up here, but if you're going to be repetitious, I just ask you to, for the convenience of everybody here, to don't come up and say what Johnny Jones just said. Just say you say the thing or whatever. Our first one is from, this is awful loud, isn't it? The first one is from Christian Taylor for zoning issues.
All right, I only have a couple minutes, so I'm just gonna try to go over a lot of stuff really quickly. I'm a tattoo artist. We have a tattoo shop. It's here. The zoning rules as they exist right now would force us into the industrial port area. The health department is not gonna pass anything in the industrial port area. So I have a law review here from the University of Cincinnati that I'm gonna give to the clerk when I'm done. It says you cannot use a zoning rule to prohibit tattooing because tattooing is protected under free speech, the First Amendment. It's considered artistic expression. The only time you could use a zoning rule to stop a tattoo shop is if it's for the public health and safety. I also have copies of our OSHA certification, our health department certification, our state licenses as tattoo artists. We are perfectly safe for the public health. All right, so there's been a lot of other cities before who've tried to use this zoning loophole to stop tattooing, and over and again in court, they lose because it is prohibiting free speech. Now, it's not just prohibiting free speech of the artist, it's prohibiting free speech of every person in that community who's trying to get a tattoo there and trying to show who they are or put their speech on their body, because that's their right as an adult in America. We also have a petition to action with almost 400 signatures here. We were told to start gathering this petition on the 3rd, okay, of this month. So we already got 400 signatures in this short amount of time. The community, I've spoken to them, I've gone business to business, all up and down all your commercial zoning areas from Joanne's Diner all the way to the Burger King. And everybody supports it. All the hotels support it. They're tired of sending their people to Cocoa Beach, where they then change hotels because they find out there's more to do in Cocoa Beach. So what I'm here to ask for is basically one, you guys change your zoning rules as they are to coincide with the way the law is. And two, that you guys give us an exemption until you're done with that long process of changing the zoning law so we could get to work. You know, we're not bikers or felons or any of that. I went to art school. You know, I'm a dad. Like, we're the real thing. I'm originally from this area. I have King Street on my birth certificate. I went to art school. I learned tattooing from the best. I traveled the country. I became nationally published and award-winning just to bring it back to my hometown, bring this good stuff back. And this zoning rule it's not right, and we really need an exemption until you guys can change your zoning rules so we can work and make our money. And definitely we need that zoning rule change because it is stopping free speech and it's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would give your paperwork to the officer there, he could take care of it.
This is our petition. Do you want this now?
Just give it to the officer, please.
But where?
Anybody that has anything they want to present as evidence or whatever, give it to the officer. He will scrutinize it and bring it up. Okay, our next one is Shannon Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Roberts. I live at Solana Shores in Cape Canaveral. And I just wanted to bring, I think the council is aware of this as well as the candidates, but I wanted to bring to the community's awareness the candidates forum that is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Space Coast this coming Saturday at the Cape Canaveral Library. The doors will open at 10, the actual forum in which you'll have a chance to meet the candidates that are running for city council for the election on November the 5th. And you'll be able to ask questions, hear their commentary about what they want to do for the city. And I just wanted to make sure the community was aware of this. I have extra flyers as I leave the podium, so I just wanted to encourage you to participate and come. Again, this is Saturday, October the 19th, 10 o'clock, the doors open. It'll be in the meeting room there from 10:30 to noon. I did want to mention, if I could, in terms of another concern as a resident, the North Atlantic streetscape, as many of you know, years ago, the residents participated in the development of North Atlantic Boulevard or Avenue, and one of the things that's been happening recently is the putting down of rocks instead of the green tree-lined street that we thought we were going to have. And I just thought I'd share that in our community, we actually have taken an initiative to get rid of the rocks because a number of our residents have commented that they didn't want to live in the Southwest. If they wanted to live in the Southwest, they would move out to Arizona or New Mexico. So I just thought I'd mention to the council and to the staff the consideration of putting in the green plants and the trees as we'd originally envisioned with the streetscape for North Atlantic. And just if you would reconsider that. I also wanted to comment, as you usually hear me talk about, the proliferation of hotels and cruise parking along A1A. The concern that a number of us have is we don't want to be everyday USA in Cape Canaveral. When you enter, across the overpass into Cape Canaveral, you want to feel like you are in a distinctive city. And right now, you just pass through between Port Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. So I ask the council's consideration of the development of the city strategically, to be more visionary as it relates to the branding of the city that makes us unique, both from beginning to end, so that people do know our city is very distinctive and certainly worldwide branded. We would take advantage of that, I would think, here. The other thing is, now that we have a transition coming within the city with a new city manager, I would encourage us to resurrect a number of the advisory boards and community workshops that used to be very characteristic of this city. In fact, we used to be the most extensive advisory board city, I think, in the whole county. And in terms of community workshops, we used to involve the community just at every turn with anything that we had that was a new initiative. And this would be a participative workshop. It's not something where we're lectured to. We actually have a chance to have roundtable focus group discussions on things that are coming our way. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Ray Osborne. Campaign signs.
Nope. Yes, yeah. That's the subject. Yeah, this is Ray Osborne. I'm actually, this time I am representing myself as a candidate for city council. And this is my first campaign. I've really quite enjoyed meeting the electorate, getting some feedback from people, and also talking to other candidates too, because we have an open line of communication. There's no rules against that as far as sunshine laws are concerned. And I think that's been very good. I had a clean campaign. And many of the candidates I've spoken to, we said that we talk to each other if we have any kind of issues and things like that. And there is issues out there, and it's been going on for a number of years. As I said, this is my first campaign running for my own seat, but I've done previous campaigns, and we've had yard signs missing. And that doesn't sound like, okay, well, maybe that's just an expendable expense, but when you think about it, those signs were paid for by donors, donors to campaigns. This is electorate money. And talking to some other candidates here, they've also had issues with missing signs too. So I kind of wanted to encourage the city to what they can do. I've also talked to our finest, our Brevard Sheriff's Department, if they could do some research and find out what's happening to these signs. And also, one thing, sometimes you get volunteers that are very gung-ho, and maybe they may push the envelope a little bit. And I'd kind of like to maybe, in our code of conduct or in our alignment with our city, maybe recommend to our volunteers that they be careful with other candidate signs, and then it's not a good strategy to move them or throw them away. And meanwhile, maybe we can do an investigation within the city here with previous years and what's happening to our signs, what's happening to our campaign signs. It's not right, and I think that's the only downside to the campaign process. But apart from that, I quite enjoyed it, especially talking to the electorate and getting their feelings on the issue. But thank you for your few minutes to hear what I had to say.
Okay, Ray, thanks. Andrea Dodge, is it? Andrew Dodge.
Yes.
Okay, it looked like Andrea, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Multi-gen building.
What's that?
Multi-generational facility is,
Yeah, I've got a couple issues there.
Okay.
I've come to find out more about this multi-generational facility that we're in the process of putting together a building. And from what I found out, there doesn't appear that we ever took it to a referendum, and the cost of it seems quite exorbitant. I personally moved into this area because it's sunny outside all the time. So this seems like a pretty large cost for our city of only 10,000 people to take on. And especially when you take into account the, we have 6,000 households here, and we're talking about a $10 million project, and that's not even ongoing costs. That seems to be quite a heavy penalty there for every household in this city for this facility. And I'm just curious to understand what the city did as far as, did we put out a survey? How many people answered it? Is this something that we're really that interested in? And if so, why is it that it's being pushed beyond the height requirements? Why is it the size it needs to be? And, those kind of information, mainly because I think fiscal responsibility is a very important piece, and I'd hate to see the city go bust over a facility like this.
you asked about 6 or 7 questions, and my advice to you as one of your servants would be to make an appointment with that gentleman right there and have an appointment with him, and he'll sit down and he'll explain the whole project. The building's just not going to be 10 million like I think you're assuming, but there is a large project involved in this, and it's just not a building. And I would advise you to get with him, and you'll get the true, straight facts.
Okay, so he's gonna pay for it then? Because it sounds like it's gonna,
No,
it sounds
no,
like I'm gonna be responsible for part of this bill.
No, he'll tell you
As the
it's
city
how it's being
resident.
paid for. You aren't paying for it.
Well, then who's
Believe me,
paying
you're-
for it?
He'll explain all it to you. We don't have
Because
time.
the city's paying for it, right? I think I have 57 seconds.
My advice, sir, is to talk to him.
Okay.
And you'll get the whole story. We can sit here all night and go over what, and I would advise you to go talk to him, and you'll get the true facts right there.
The true facts.
How that's gonna be paid for and what's gonna happen. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I think we went through all of our public participation. Now I got a lot of cards up here for items that are on the agenda. Pardon? I didn't get your name? Oh, card, Mark James. Well, let's just stuck together with another one. Well, come on up, sir, and while I'm looking through all this, I got a pile of them. I'm sorry, here it is. You have items 10 and 11 on there.
I signed up twice.
I'm sorry?
I signed up twice.
Items 10 and 11, it says. It says
Oak Lane. Oak Lane.
items 10 and 11.
Yeah,
They'll be
those-
on the agenda later on. You can talk then. Anything that's pertaining to Oak Lane will be discussed under the Oak Lane items.
Yeah.
You can't discuss anything you want to.
You can, but you won't be talking on the agenda items again. You'll get 3 minutes. What the law is, you get 3 minutes to discuss an item or a variable. If you want to discuss 2, 3 items, it's all under.
It would have to get removed.
Yeah, Mayor, on Oak Lane,
But-
as you know, Oak Lane has to be removed from the table
Right,
to have be
right.
discussed. So in the event that it didn't get removed from the table, there would be no discussion on that item. You may want to let him just at least speak on the Oak Lane issue just in case the council doesn't remove it from the table on that item.
I would like to speak to that issue.
Go ahead.
My name is Mark James, and as I stated, I'd like to address a letter that was presented to the council at the last council meeting. The ordinance and resolution pertaining to Oak Lane were tabled as a result of that letter. The letter was presented by Mr. Bertie Lennon, and there are some items on that letter that I would like to address specifically. Item 1, Mr. Lennon asserts that during construction, that vehicles were forced onto his property that resulted in a down power line and some other issues in there. The exhibit that's being passed out right now, the first page is an aerial view from 2014 before construction began. The second page is an aerial view from 2018, basically the way the situation is right now. And you can see for yourself from the aerial view that there's basically no difference in the travelway down Oak Lane from 2014 and 2018. So I'd like Mr. Lennon stated that there's an emergency because of the houses. I would like to say there is no emergency. I'm a resident of Oak Lane, and we feel that item 1 does not pertain to the ordinance or the resolution and should not be used or should not be considered in the tabling, or should not have been considered in the tabling, and therefore should not be considered whether or not you untable that. Mr. Lennon's item number 2, he opposes improvements to Oak Lane. However, no improvements are being proposed as part of the ordinance or the resolution. Once again, Mr. Lennon's letter was used to table the ordinance and the resolution, and I'm stating that item 2 should not be used in consideration of tabling that or untabling it. Finally, he says that there was property loss as a result of the city survey. The ordinance and the documentation that comes with that states that there are multiple conflicting surveys. We have one more with the city. So we just added to that. And I would say that that the city should make a decision, as you are proposing to do with the resolution, and to move forward that. Once again, we feel that the items in Mr. Lennon's letter should not be considered in the tabling or untabling of the ordinance or the resolution, and we urge you to vote in favor of untabling those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you want to speak on the items as they come up, if they get pulled off, or have you? Because it's rather confusing how this stuff gets turned in, I don't. Okay, so I will call upon you if you so wish to speak. But, all right. Okay, has anybody else got something they want to say under public participation? Yes, sir, come on up. If you want to give your name, please, and you can tell us what you want to speak about. And I'd like for you to fill out a card if you give your name. Otherwise, you just have at it.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I did fill out a card, put my name on it, but I'd just like to talk about the cell tower, which is proposed in Harbour Drive. The cell tower, I don't know if you know about it, but it's about 32 feet tall. It's going to be right on the beach, exactly where a gopher turtle nest is. It'll be a blot on the landscape. It cannot be camouflaged because it is too high. The trees down there are much smaller than 32 feet. And the council does have a right to deny the application by Verizon. I understand that the council have said before that they have no right to deny. They do have a right to deny, and I'd just like to make it public that you do. That cell tower is a blot on the landscape. It should not be on the beach. There are plenty of other existing high buildings, and I would urge you to deny the application by Verizon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. I'm going to close public participation. And all right. Are you going to speak on something that's on the agenda already, or do you have something you just want?
It was in regards to the tattoo parlor.
Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Come on up.
Excuse me, Mayor, may we have names and addresses,
That's-
please, of people speaking?
We
My
have been
name is-
instructed that's not necessary.
Oh, okay, thank you.
My name
wanna
is
be
Jillian
included in it.
Eckhart.
If you want your name to be mentioned in the minutes as one that's speaking, you need to give us a speaker card.
I
If you-
did.
What is your name?
Jillian, Gillian, Eckhart,
What's your-
ECKHARDT.
It must be something that's on the agenda, because I got a pile of agenda cards.
Yes, it was on the agenda in regards to the tattoo parlor.
There's one that wasn't,
Is
they got
this
stuck
not the
together.
right time?
It's the right time, yes. It's just not on the agenda. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've written something, so I'm not speaking extemporaneously. Memories are what hold lives together. Without memories to share, you only have the present, perhaps not even the future. Tattoo parlors are no longer designated to the back alleys of a city. They have become the art galleries of the human body and show the magnificent work of the artist. They are no longer seen as only belonging to sailors, bikers, prisoners, warriors, and any other unsavory character. Tattoos portray the important moments in the lives of people, as well as religious icons and important remembrances of heartfelt aspects of our lives, such as dates of births, deaths, marriages, graduations, and more. To deny the Tattoo Social Club to become one of our local places of business would be tantamount to disallowing the First Amendment of free speech, as well as disallowing numerous other constitutional rights. Within this area of small businesses, there is a liquor store, a pizza store, and a hair salon, as well as a realtor's office. They all believe that that tattoo salon would be more than an acceptable business within this small business area. Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
I appreciate your
I
time.
did find your card, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Thank
These
you.
things stick together. Okay, I have two more that were under public participation. One just says general, Beverly, or that's the name that's on a Bev. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. The next one is Robert Corney. I got it. Come on in. Speed bump on Chandler Avenue. Okay. Number one.
Yes, Bob Carney, 340 Chandler. We'd like to get a speed bump on our street between Roslyn and Ridgewood. They fly down through there. The speed limit's 20, and it's also a school zone. It's 15 during school hours. People that live in Canaveral Sands fly up and down that road. Been there since 1987, and we'd like to get a speed bump there. That's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. All right, I hope we're through with public participation. I went through the cards. I see cards that have various things that are on it that aren't on the agenda. I see cards that have agenda items and that's not on the agenda. So what I'm going to do, as we get to that item on the agenda, and you got an item you want to discuss that's not on the agenda, you're going to get to talk at that time, but you're going to be limited to 3 minutes. I got cards here that got 4 and 5 items on it, and they're on the agenda, they're not on the agenda. So the way that the procedure should go is we have a public participation with non-agenda items, and then you fill out a card for agenda items, and we go that way on it. So you'll get to speak, but it'll be, you might be speaking about something that you want to talk about that's not on the agenda, but you're going to be last before you speak. So that's the way the cards come in. All right, we're going to move on and close public participation. And items for action is the first agenda item, and I do have about 6 or 7 cards on that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry. Anthony, as far as a procedure here, the request to add on the 4 agenda discussion items, is that now?
Yeah, I would suggest that you bring that up now and see if the council wants to add them to the agenda, and then they would be, if they approve it, then it'll be placed on the agenda at the end.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Okay, for a matter of what I would like to ask is, are you going to move for approval for all 4 items at one time to be added? And then we're going to talk about those 4 items before we go into the agenda or at the end of the agenda?
No, sir, I would be in favor of going towards the end of the agenda.
But I would like to add them at one at a time after we discuss one, and then we'll vote to add the next one. That's the way I would vote to do it. I'm not going to vote. We have a very, very full house tonight, as you can well see, and we have a ton of cards to go through, and I'm not going to deny anybody the right to speak, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda. And then you want to add 4 more items after we already got 15 or 16 items to go through. And we could belabor one of those 4 items for an hour, and then we're going to,
Yeah.
I'm not going to support putting all 4 of them on at one time, Mr. Attorney. I will do it at the end of the agenda, and I will support one item at a time, because we're going to be here for a while.
Well,
And furthermore, adding them onto the agenda, they should have been put in before Friday at 5:30 or whatever time they came in.
That's,
At this juncture, in order to add the items onto the agenda, the city council can, by motion, majority vote, add the items to the agenda. That doesn't necessarily mean there'll be time to discuss them. That's another issue, but the council could simply add them to the agenda with majority vote at your discretion. If you don't add them to the agenda this evening, then under your current rules, these items will definitely be on the next council agenda, because each council member has the right to add an agenda. In this particular case, the submittal was, the manager deemed wasn't timely regarding the interpretation of rules, and so procedurally, if you want to add them to the agenda, you need by majority vote to do so.
Well, I have our yearly schedule that we have. And you voted on this, Wes. It states very clearly, agenda cutoff time is 4:30 PM on Wednesday.
yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'm
That's
not
it.
interested in
But
debating
no, I'm
that.
just saying, we're getting into a debate on to add 4 items on that could have been added on.
No,
But
I
you
think
didn't
it-
get them in on the time, you got them in late, and I don't want to be voting and add 4 more items to the agenda. I will support adding them, yes, but I'm not going to do it all 4 at one time.
Well,
We'll
in
do them one at a
fairness,
time.
many of these were citizen requests to be put on, and the four items were all
I know
submitted
that.
were all submitted
At
at
your
this-
request to
Mr. Mayor, if I
citizens.
may finish, please, thank you.
Yeah, I
They were all
understand.
submitted at the same time. And to prioritize one over the other, I think that I have the right as a council member, and I would argue, and I had a very good conversation through exchange of emails with our city attorney, that schedule that was passed is in conflict, in my humble opinion, with our ordinances. The fact that you can put a time on a piece of paper, that's not how the ordinance making process follows. But I do understand that the heaviness of this agenda, and my request is that I will be timely if we even have enough time to get to those four items. I have no interest in dragging this on, but as my right and a representative to the people here, these four items are very important to me, and in my view, I fell well within the ordinances of this city, which says by Wednesday is the cutoff time. I can certainly understand how that schedule is explicitly clear, and through that, I think we've got an improvement to make in our policy. But moving forward, I would appreciate the consideration to add all four, and just know that in exchange, time will tell, I'll be very timely in getting these matters across to the council. And so with that, I would move to add all four agenda items and trust that I will be timely and efficient and I go through them. So moving to add the four items, I believe that all of the council was notified on cell phone towers, a discussion on cell phone towers, a discussion on, in the aftermath of the termination or the separation of the city manager, a proposed ordinance, a discussion on sign violations, which we've heard today, some concerns there, or sign code ordinance, and the last item is parking space regulations. Those four items, I would say
Important.
5
I know
minutes
what they are.
apiece, very important. I move to add those on.
Okay, we have a motion to add 4 items onto the agenda, as Mr. Morrison has mentioned. Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Like I said, Wes, I would support one at a time, but I won't support 4 at a time. You'll have to,
All right, can I speak now? May I speak?
on,
No, there was no second. Can we move on?
what do you want to move to? I'm not quite understanding. You want to talk on his motion or
No,
what?
no, definitely not. There was no second.
Okay.
So can we move on to what I would like to say now?
We're going to move to item for action, or if you got something you...
Yes, I would like to speak now. I would like to move item number 13, discussion, to right after the city manager appointment item. I'd like to, item number 13 to be moved under item number 1. Thank you.
You're asking to move item 13,
To right under city manager appointment.
so make it basically item number 2 on the agenda. but-
Yes, correct.
Okay, I understand. You're going to move 13. Okay, we have a motion to move item 13 to right after item 1. Do you have a second?
Mr. Chair, that's the one on our agenda that was scheduled, correct? Item number 13?
Item number 13 is under items for discussion, City Code Section 228, Code of Conduct. Mrs. Raymond wants to move that to item number 2, basically, on the agenda.
I would second it for discussion.
You're seconding the motion to
Yes.
move it, or just for discussion?
I would move it for approval,
Okay, so
Pending.
you want,
whatever
okay.
you decide with the majority
Okay.
vote.
We have a motion to move item 13 to the second item on the agenda, and we have a second by Mr. Randalls. You call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hoag,
Or,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
we got to go back to, what was she going to speak on?
Mr. Chair, can we get scrolled down to what that item is?
Yes, sir, just a second. We got a little confusion. Okay. All right. Okay, we have moved item 13 down to the second item on the agenda, but I've been called back to public participation. We had somebody that was not here when we called their name and they want to speak. Bev?
Hi, good evening. My name is Beverly Bard. I happen to be an owner in Ocean Woods. And I know one of the items, number 14 on the agenda, has to do with the Ridgeway Wood extension. And I simply want to encourage council to,
Whoa, let me stop you right now. You're on the agenda, you'll speak at that time. If that's what you want to speak on, is that
Yes.
right away?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you'll speak at that time. That's why we need you to mark what you want to put up on here, because I didn't know what it was for.
Okay.
You will get your opportunity when we get to that item. Thank you. That's item 14, right? Pays to put stuff on it. Okay, we're going to go back to keep adding them. We're going to go back to the items for action. The first item on is appointment of city manager. Our normal protocol is the council discusses it, and then we open it to public. I'm going to open it to public tonight for this case, on this case only, to hear what you have to say before the council gets into discussion on it. That way, everybody can air their feelings, and the council's here to hear it. And I have a lot of cards, so if you want to repeat what the guy just, like I mentioned before, said before you get up, please just acknowledge you agree or whatever. Are those for right now or those later?
Agenda items.
That's later. Let's- I'm not going to hear this right now. All right, we're going to go into item number 1. And the first one is Stuart Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, and thank you, fellow citizens of Cape Canaveral. It's a great show. By way of introduction, my name is Stuart Smith. I live at 215 Harbor, or Coral Drive in Harbor Heights for the past 7 years. So I'm here to express my disagreement and displeasure with the 4-1 council vote to reach a mutual separation agreement with the former manager David Green of 9/17/2019, providing him with $116,000 and some change with separation pay. I'm also here to express my disappointment with the 4 council members who voted and my unwavering support of Mr. Morrison, a council member with the strength of character and ethical foundation, to vote in dissent to allow public participation and public comment on this decision. So here's what I'm hoping of you, and perhaps we can put this in the agenda, that the 4 council members explain this decision to this community. How you gave away $116,000 to a man who has pulled this charade in another city in 2010. Maybe some of my citizens do not know that Mr. Green did the same thing in the city of Winter Haven, and to explain why an agreement like this was reached. I have a long history in human resources career, and it has been my experience, may not be true of this situation, it's been my experience, that these types of agreements are designed to do several things. They're designed to protect poor decisions. They are designed to cloak poor performance. And they are designed to lessen liability. That's what these agreements are for. They are akin to termination, and I know the contract agreement that was reached with Mr. Green when he started to work here in the city of Cape Canaveral. Now, you may not be able or willing to address all these issues, so then I can only assume motivation for this decision. And you may, as council members, sit confident in the knowledge that you may have met the letter of the Sunshine Law, but you, ladies and gentlemen, did not meet the intent of the Sunshine Law. And for those who participate in poor decisions like this that waste taxpayers' dollars and are cloaked in process, there are many levels of accountability. So I'd like to let my citizens know of my complete support of Mr. Osborne and Ms. Kellum. Thank you very much for your time.
Andrew Dodge.
I'd like to make two comments to the city council and the mayor regarding the new city manager. First and foremost, I think when appointing a new city manager, I encourage you guys to pass an ordinance that specifically says that the city manager should live inside the city of Cape Canaveral. I find this in bad taste if somebody is managing the city, the most important job in the city, and not actually part of the city or going with the benefits or the repercussions to those decisions. That would be like the CEO of Ford driving a GM. And I think that's in poor taste and should not occur. And so I deeply encourage you guys to pass an ordinance saying that that's a requirement of this job. God knows it pays well enough for somebody to live in the city. The second thing I'd like to mention, it has to do with the mutual separation agreement. I agree with the person that I just followed there, except for that you followed the letter of the law. And I'm not sure what attorney gave you information on this, but the Sunshine Law says it very clearly. The separation agreement was not mentioned in his original contract. And in fact, the separation agreement was a new agreement and does fall within the Sunshine Law. And it is illegal what you guys did. And according to the state attorney, it could be criminal. So I would encourage all of the city council and the mayor to think twice about that decision and maybe take different action, even retroactively, because this could be a criminal issue that you have inadvertently gotten yourself into. And that's what I have to say.
You. John Pierce or Price?
No comment right now, thank you.
You pass? Osher?
Hello, council members. I thought the discussion will happen after you guys vote on action. I just wanted to show my support for Todd Marley. I understand that he's a candidate for the city manager's position. Hopefully, I've worked with him hand in hand on many things throughout his lifetime in the city. Very pleasant man, and I really think he will do the job very well and serve everybody very well. Thank you.
Next motion. Pat Campbell.
Patrick Campbell. Just want to echo the thanks to the citizens coming out tonight. I just want to voice my, as you call it, opinion. I think until the city is forthcoming with the details of Mr. Green's separation agreement, you should defer any appointment or any decisions made about a new one until the citizens can become confident that there aren't anybody else on this council or in this staff associated with the reason for him being separated. Thank you.
Ray Osborne.
Yes, I know this is a very difficult situation for the city right now with the city manager. I have been doing a little bit of canvassing and polling with the citizenry, and there's an overwhelming response that we should select a city manager from the city, or at least have the person that does accept the job as city manager at least live in the city. I think it's important. Also, I think, based on the fact that the city manager did have a reputation in a previous city, that we should do research and know about that research. I'm kind of interested if research was done that the city manager had these same kind of issues before. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Green. I think he did a lot of good things for our city, and he did wonderful things, so I'm not totally against him, but I do think that we can make wiser decisions by looking at our mistakes. They say a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So I think that's an important issue right there. And I do, the optics are important, and I think that, having everybody automatically approve his departure, except for one council person, and just something doesn't click. Did everybody else know what was going on? I mean, they just felt like that was the right thing to do based on what you know. We don't know what the issue was. And I'm really encouraging open government. I think that it's important with home rule that we do have an open government. We have transparency, and I don't see that transparency. And that transparency is written into our sunshine law. So, and I'm not going to go into detail about what's legal or not, but I would get you to search your own soul and what you know about ethics in our sunshine laws and make a decision from there. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I got a lot of cards that are kind of all mixed up. I got cell phone towers, I got everything. It's just trying to run through and get the stuff as it comes up on our agendas where it's so confusing the way they did it.
Trying to hunt for people.
Yeah, but cell phone towers, cell phone, and then they got other stuff mixed in with it too. This multi-gen facility. It's hard to figure out how to do it. Yeah, just scratch out the ones. We're gonna get off of this and move on with the appointments while we try to get. The problem when you fill out a card, if you put 2 and 3 items on the same card, and none of the items but one are on the agenda, it's hard to fish it through and bring it back to where it needs to go, because lo and behold, I don't want to miss anybody or give you the opportunity to speak on whatever you wrote a card in here for. Yeah, but then. Well, I got one here that's got 5 items on it, and there's one of them on the agenda. The others are rather general. But it's an item on the city manager, multi-generation facility, cell phone towers, Ridgewood easements, facilities, and code of conduct. So how do you, when you got agendas, it's kind of hard to keep shuffling them around without getting missed, and I don't want to do that. So,
And Bill.
you have,
City manager.
okay. I'm going to give Mr. and Mrs. Hodge. You both have a card. You got 5 or 6 items on it. I'm going to let you come up and talk, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about that's on that card. How's that? And then we'll move on to the agendas. Okay. And if it's on the agenda, you're not going to get to come back and talk about that item.
Okay.
You're going to get your shot right now because it's.
Okay. First of all, the city manager, I agree with all the speakers before and what, we. I know that if there was only 10 minutes or so for the council to look at it, they didn't have a time to really digest the material and to know what was going on. So they voted on it without any information, really. And I don't know how that got on an agenda before, the 2-week rule or whatever. How did that just come up on the agenda that afternoon? And was he fired or did he quit? Because it sure looked like he quit and got his severance pay. I don't get it. And to me, the council did not know what they were voting on.
10 and 11.
They should never have done that without a long look at what's going on. I support what Patrick Campbell said, what Andrew Dodge said. I support the speaker in the beginning. I couldn't hear his name, but he lived on Coral Drive. And, we've had a house here since 1973. And we've watched this city go so long with great things. And I don't get what's going on now. It's completely different. You don't let the citizens participate. You cut us off. You don't want us to participate. You do everything you can to, and even your staff comes back at us like, do you want us to raise your taxes? That was unacceptable. You guys aren't very nice to us. You know, this is just on the city manager, but I believe he should definitely live in the city. He needs to have a good handle on what's going on. Multi-generational facility, no one's really opposed to this multi-generational facility. It's the 5 point whatever million, and it'll probably be more, that you're gonna put on this facility. When there's a lot of needed projects, you should have a smaller facility. We can't afford the maintenance and the utilities on a building like that. This is huge, and you're not using all of this, and there's not enough parking. There's not enough. We had to park in the library. And this is, a crowd is not unusual. Well, it is unusual for here because no one comes because they know they can't speak out at the meetings. You put us down.
I'm gonna put you
cell
down,
tower.
like you said, I'm gonna put you down, you're over.
The cell tower.
3 minutes is over with.
We are
Thank you.
opposed.
Okay, Mr. Hodge. All right. Bill Hodge. Come on up and put me down. Yeah, okay. Mr. James, did you want to speak on 10 and 11 when we get there? Okay. I got him in order, I hope, because yep, we will. 10 and 11. I'm just trying to get these things rolling. All right. Back to our agenda. City manager's appointment. Has everybody had their say that they want to say about the city manager's appointment? I'm going to close public participation and bring it up to the council. We are on the city manager's appointment. Discussion amongst the council.
I don't know where to begin, Mr. Chair. Are you seeking from us a motion, a discussion, or what exactly are you?
Well, I'm not seeking anything other than we have an agenda items. I'm not seeking anybody in particular. I'm not seeking anything other than, yes, we do need, I've heard we don't need to do this tonight. Well, we can't operate a city without somebody in authority. First item, to answer somebody's question or a comment at the podium. We need somebody to run this city either from here to whenever, or to appoint somebody permanently until we go out and spend $25,000 or something to find a new city manager. So it's the council's discussion, and it's up to the council what we do. And we're open for a discussion to appoint somebody as city manager permanently or an interim, whatever you people decide.
Well, I'm probably certainly the older, probably the senior person, and I'd like to lead it with my knowledge of what I think based on the few years I've been here. The city needs a leader and a functional and a person almost on a daily basis. Somebody comes in with a problem. We as council people are kind of volunteers. We're your representative to take it to the city manager. We carry out your desires. If somebody says, I need a tree planted in my yard because the lights from that street causes a problem, we look at it. If we have the money to purchase a tree and the request is solid We go to the city manager. Now, bearing in mind, these 5 people make the policies on how to spend your money. If we have the funding, we will go to the city manager and say, we would like to have a tree put between the streetlights and them bedroom windows. He carries it out. So we have a clear function of what our job is. We're policymakers. We're not the people, shouldn't be the people who goes out and plants a tree. We go to the city manager and say, city manager, we have money in the budget, we have a request, we'd like you to plant a tree. City manager goes to the staff, in this case probably Public Works, and goes to them and say, buy a tree and plant it there big enough to shade the windows from the oncoming light. That's kind of how we operate. We're your first connection to try to get something done. City manager is the person that's in charge of some 50 employees here in the city. He carries out the policy of the 5 people here. For instance, we added 2 people to the sheriff's department, which we contract with. The city manager then does with the sheriff and says, I need 2 more, council has paid for it, and they want 2 more people on the street in your city, and they're gonna pay for it. He carries out the instructions. He does not make policy, should not make policy. The policy is by your elected people, and we hopefully try to serve exactly what you want. On a bigger level, city manager is in charge of the budget that we set and prepare. He drafts it up, and we in turn agree on it. Do we have the money? We know how much money we're anticipating. But that gets to the point then of the city manager carrying it out. We do not go to the employee and say, Bill, go out there and plant a tree so that lady knows, quits talking to me. We go through the city manager. He is the action person. He is the person that is the designee to sign the checks, does all the work with the federal or the state departments, with the county. He is the person that carries out the work. We do not get involved with hiring an employee or firing an employee except for the city manager. He is our only contact, should be our only contact to get things done. You give us a problem, we take it to him and he tries to solve it and get it done if there's money in the budget. That's kind of the chain of command, kind of a basic thing. So the person, somebody has to sign the papers as the person being in authority. And that authority is given to a person by the choice of the city council at that time. That's where it happens. And I'm back to the very beginning, and I don't know if you really want to go there, but some of the things is important, and we have it on the screen. When we hired this city manager, and I was here, and I don't know if you've got that on your screen about the original employment thing. If you do, because it states in there exactly that the responsibility of the city manager, I probably, if I could grab a paper here and get you down to where I was going to read. If you could go to page 4 of the 8, and that's the responsibility of the city manager. And that kind of gets it. I don't know if you have that or not in your screen. You do not have his employment contract?
Employment contract.
Okay. Well, I would start by reading a little bit, quite an employed booklet here. Of when you hire a city manager, you have to understand that he has 5 bosses. He has to keep 3 of the 5 people up here on his side. And with that in mind, he always has, when a city manager comes on board, they prepare a contract, and that's what it is. He's a contracted employee by this group, and it has several clauses in there, and part of them tells exactly what we can do, and part tells what he can do. And in the city manager's task, and it spells out exactly if we fire him without cause, which is what happened at this time, we then have to pay his severance pay exactly as we agreed to. It's on page 4. Termination by the city and severance pay. And I'll read it, and this is available for people. It's on there. And if you go clear to the very last page, you'll see that in the 17th of June, 2010, I was the mayor at the time, which means that I acted on behalf of the council, and I and David Green signed it. In fact, there's some people that was on the council here that's already spoke tonight. At that time, we come to the agreement of what we wanted based on this man's qualifications, his talk to us, what he thought he could do, on and on. We offered him a contract. He was making considerably more in Winter Haven, I believe. We offered him what our city could pay, which was $99,000 a year. He took it. But in the contract, it says the city manager shall serve at the pleasure of the city council, and the city council may determine the agreement, and the city manager's employment with the city may terminate the disagreement with the city's employment with the city at any time, for any reason, or for no reason. Tells that. That's pretty simple. He, as the city manager, says he has his part in here, and if the city manager is terminated by the city because of conviction of failure, reckless, or thing like that, that's something different. If indeed the city council says, we, in our case, and I can only speak for me, the other people you hear, I no longer had confidence in the ability of the city manager to carry out the policies of these 5 people. We've had, without going into details, and that isn't important because I understand we fired him or terminated the work without cause, and that puts it to this thing here. So, should a majority of the, I'm on page 4, should a majority of the entire council, 3 members or more, vote to terminate the services of the city manager without cause, and I understand that was it. We didn't say you stole the money, or nothing, no cause, no reason. Without cause, or the city manager and the city council mutually agree to voluntarily terminate the service of the city manager after the majority of the city council makes a consensus or makes a suggestion of termination without cause. If I understand that correctly, we did not say you've done something wrong, you haven't done nothing, it is without cause. We made the decision, these 5 people up here, 4 of the 5, and in that then we are bound to this. The city manager agrees that the city council shall have the sole and absolute discretion to decide upon such termination under this paragraph. In the event of that termination, the city manager waives all rights to contest or challenge the city council decision and will accept the payments provided in this paragraph in full satisfaction of the city's obligations under this agreement and full release of any and all claims. That ends the case. We have 2 people saying, if you don't want me, I don't want to be here. Whatever the case may be, but you're going to pay me. Furthermore, in consideration for this, both individually and their official capacity under this agreement. Furthermore, as consideration for such payment, the city council shall execute and deliver to each other a reciprocal general release identifying any holding harmless each other. That is what was presented to this body as the first item, I believe it was, Mayor, on the first item on the agenda. It was not on the agenda by the nature of when it happened. The city attorney was involved, of course, but it goes on to say exactly what he's entitled to. We shall not unreasonably withhold approval and execution of the general release. We can't make him stay. Payment of the severance pay shall not exceed 6 months. That was in the contract. That's what you agreed to. That's a standard clause. And Anthony, if I'm wrong, you need to jump in and say, shut up, turkey. But this is a standard clause in almost all city managers' agreement because we change seats up here. There'll be somebody else here tomorrow within 3 weeks, perhaps. And indeed, they may not like them. So it comes to us normally a termination, if it ever gets to that, is at the close of an election where the responsibility hangs on us as the people that has been here for 2, 3, 4 years or whatever, know and understand and say we're not going to give a city manager that we don't like or don't believe or trust to the new council. If the city manager is told, because, let me think where I've got my thumb here. In addition, the city manager shall be entitled to any accrued vacation and sick leave under the terms, I'm at the top of page 5, shall be entitled to any accrued vacation and sick leave. He was paid exactly for the days that he had on the book according to, we don't keep score, and he don't punch a time card. He's a salaried employee. If he says, I can't come in today, but I want to work by phone, whether we like it or not, that's the understanding and the condition. So that's kind of what happened. Termination, the city manager may terminate this agreement at any time by delivering to the city, this is his part, his or hers, by delivering to the city, I'm at the bottom of page 5, by delivering to the city council a written notice of termination and not later than 30 days prior to the effective date. And that's to give the city a chance to find another person that says, I want to be your person. If the city manager voluntarily resigns pursuant to this section, the city shall pay the city manager all accrued salary in the city, and I'm going to page 6 now, managers up to the final day of employment. And this is what finance does, and they figured it up and says, okay, as of this point, and that was on a Sunday, I guess, because Monday, we met Tuesday. And that's when the add-on item come on our agenda. That's the first many of us see it. The city shall have no further financial obligation to the employee in pursuant to this agreement. This subsection shall not prevent the city manager from collecting any vested money as a result of participation in any retirement plan. That's his. He put it in his own retirement plan where he wanted it. The city agrees to establish, city shall define, identify, and hold the city manager harmless against any and all claims. If he makes a bad decision, it's our decision if he carries it out. So with that in mind, I guess I'll hush up. But what we did, if I understand this, Anthony, and you probably need to jump right in and either contradict me.
I have something to say. I'm ready to speak now. Okay. I have something to say about this.
I'll be quiet.
I take great umbrage. I have a master's degree in linguistics with a specialty in teaching English as a second language. I taught at the university. I can read very quickly. However, I just want to say I did due diligence. I was the only council member who asked for this public record, anybody could have, this employment agreement. When I had this employment agreement, when I made my decision, I had the new agenda item that was drawn up by the city attorney and the mayor, and David Green signed it. I had both things, and I compared paragraph by paragraph. I read very carefully, and I'm sorry that some others didn't have this in their hands. This was very important to me when I made my decision. I do not make quick decisions in my life. I read very carefully, and I can read very fast. This is true. But in this case, I did not make a quick decision. Part of making good decisions has to do with the human contact that we have, human relationships with people. And I think that this is an important point. This was done, and I think it was done well. I think it was right, honest, and just. And I feel that we did do our due diligence in this. And a termination, as most of you know, most of you are pretty intelligent and have good jobs. I feel that we have a very intelligent community. I respect everyone here and respect our residents. I'm very impressed with everyone I meet. And I feel that you understand employment contracts. You can read this very carefully online. It's public record. And I hope that some of you voted for us and thought carefully when you gave us your vote and your trust. We have been elected to make wise decisions. And that's why we made this decision. And it's for the good of the community, I'll tell you that. And that's why we vote. It's for the interest and the good of our community. Thank you.
Marcy.
Yep. We might have a little bit of mission creep here, but I mean, I think we were supposed to be appointing this interim city manager, but since we're going here, you know where I stand on this issue. I think it was rather sad situation to be in, to think that something could not wait 24 hours. And to say, you know, what was the real rush? Why, how can you do due diligence that fast?
You can read.
I have the contract. I know the contract. I had the contract that night. Thank you very much. And and that public records request has been sitting there forever. The whole public has access to that. So to single yourself out, I think, is a bit,
No,
above
this
the
was
top.
at
But
the
if I
council
can-
meeting.
I understand.
Thank
But
you very much.
To say that, you know, you knew the contract is irrelevant. And
It was very relevant.
in this, we all, I think, had a good grasp of the contract. The
didn't
fact
see
of the
it.
matter that we were told in a very rush decision that this was a good deal, that we needed to move forward with this without giving a reason why, is what the public is really upset about, and that we were willing to take that.
Can I
and
interrupt you a minute,
because-
Mr. Morrison? Can I ask you, who told you this is a good deal and we need to move it forward? Who said that? You're making comments here that I don't think ever took place
it
on
was
this
just
dais.
okay. It
Well,
was just
just a
said
minute.
that it would. I'm going to answer your question.
You said
I'm-
your exact words were, this was a good, we were told this was a good deal and we need to move it forward. Now, who said that up here on the dais that night? I don't recall anybody saying it was a good deal. It definitely was not a good deal. It's not a good deal.
It was in the best
There was
interest
no
of the
pleasure
city.
in doing what we had to do.
It was just said
So
by
did you make it
Councilman-
sound like we made a circus and we did it all without anybody thinking about it, and you're the only guy that really thought about it, and you're telling
No, that's
us
the
we
whole
said
point.
it was a good deal?
The whole point
Would
is I
you
didn't
mind
get a
answering
chance
who
to-
said it was a good deal?
You-
Explain yourself, who said it was a good deal? You said the words that,
I understand. I'd like to reply. I'm just
well,
waiting
yeah,
for
I'd
you
like
to
to know who
finish.
said it was a good deal.
Okay.
Because it definitely wasn't me.
Councilmember Raymond just said, in the best interest of the city, that you elect us to make the best interest of the city. That night, you said over and over again, and I have the verbatim script, I wish I could tell you, and I was given I wish I could tell you why, but I can't, and that we need to trust that this is the right decision. So whether it was verbatim said, good deal, it was insinuated that why would we do something that was a bad deal for us? That's my question to you.
You didn't say
Is
that. You didn't
of
say
course.
that. You said a comment that was very upsetting to me. If you look at the separation agreement, there's a disclosure in there.
I
If you
understand.
understand that, then you don't need to be pushing what happened. There's a disclosure agreement that is in uttermost, and anybody that is in HR or anything that knows anything about disclosures, I'm sure you'll understand what a disclosure is. And you're telling me that we said it was a good deal that night, not tonight.
Do you
No one
believe?
ever said that.
Do you believe
heard
that
it.
it was a bad deal for us, the separation agreement?
No, but I didn't
Okay,
say
so
it was a
if-
good deal.
Okay.
But you said somebody said it was a good deal.
No, I
didn't mention
if
any of
excuse me, if I said that someone said, I have the verbatim
You can
script,
go
and I
ahead.
don't
You
ever
got-
recall
you got
ever
the floor,
reading
but
the
every time
words.
you make
I
a
think you're putting
mis-
words in my mouth.
No, you said it. It's on
I'd like
recording.
to take the floor back if I could, please.
I'll give you the floor, but every time you make a misstatement, I'm going to interrupt you.
I don't think that you have the
Because I will.
authority to do that within the ordinances.
I will,
The
'cause
only time you can
you sit there
interrupt
and-
me is if I have a code of conduct violation.
Well,
up
you
here,
just
and
said
or if I
something that
fall-
you just said something that this council said, and I don't think this council said that.
It is no mystery that the citizens were very frustrated in the
Yeah,
after.
well, I can believe it.
The citizens were very frustrated in the unwillingness for you to meet in a secret meeting.
Wasn't secret.
That you were not able to share any of the information. Over and over, you said, I wish I could tell you, but I cannot tell you. I was told by Councilmember Raymond that sometimes you just need to understand, Wes, that we need to make this is the best decision for the city, It was stated by Councilmember Randalls that this is like a marriage, that sometimes you need to part ways. And it was stated by Mayor Pro Tem Brown that we are elected to make tough decisions. And the reality is, we are elected to make informed decisions. And we don't have to have all the facts. I was the first one to not object to the city manager separating. It was no mystery that where I stood with him. And a gentleman who got, above average, optimal, no room for improvement reviews suddenly comes to an end. And so the facts, when we go back and you can watch the meeting and you see it leaves the public with a bad feeling in their stomach. The whole intent of the Sunshine Law is that when we meet, we disclose what we talked about. And for us that night to not take the existing contract that we evidently all know and to not service that contract, I think was a mistake. We keep talking about termination. There was no point in the meeting to where consensus was taken up or a vote was taken up to terminate the city manager. I have the script, and for us to cite the contract and to say that we terminated him, I don't even recall. We approved a mutual separation agreement. That is not a termination without cause. I was very thankful that Councilmember Randall read that section in his agreement, because those things, from my recollection of the meeting, and I think if anyone was to watch it, did not happen. And so we didn't abide by it. And the reason why is because we were signing, in my opinion, a new agreement. If we weren't, other than some general releases, why didn't we just stick to the original one? And to go through all of those benefits from PTO and the severance pay, what was not in there was the COBRA payments, $5,000 in monthly COBRA payments that were going out. So we didn't do exactly what the original contract said. And so in the due diligence, when you were comparing side by side, that's something that says, okay, the reason why we're adding COBRA payments is because this is a new agreement. And I asked and
It said
requested
up to. Up to. It said up to.
I understand.
Okay, so
but
it may
I
only be $500 or $800. It said up to.
If it's $1 more, it's different. And so therefore, after meeting with some citizens who understand these issues, and you've heard the concerns today with the compliance with state law, I've met with our city attorney, and I requested for the citizens here who understand, immediately I requested a special council meeting for all this council to say, hey, we made a decision very quickly. This is an opportunity for us to come in. And the one issue they put out was the glaring issue that there was no payment due date on the severance pay, and the original contract did. No big deal. Let's come back together and look at that in addition to other things. But in that search, I expressed specifically within state law where I felt like there was compliance issues, crickets. No reply from any of the other council members, and that was a good time to come back together. And I genuinely believe it's because they felt like they did make a good decision. They did make, excuse me for saying what you think was a good deal. And I think that today for us to sit here and to say that we're proud of this is not representative of the people that I talk to. And you can go on social media, you can see emails and understand that we have an issue in front of us. We've got, in my opinion, a contract that we executed back in 2010. We signed a new contract in September, whenever the date of the meeting was, 17th. And because that new contract exists, it falls under state law, and the compliance issues there are what I'm concerned about. And so today, we have on the agenda an appointment for an interim city manager. And I didn't want it to go, to go through and justify what we did. That to me doesn't line up very well with what's on the agenda. And I think we need to focus on that we have Todd Morley here, but I felt like I had a service to the public to at minimum reply and to say, you gave me the feeling, Councilmember Reynolds, that we lined up with the existing contract.
We
That
did.
is not true.
But a termination,
true.
though, Wes.
You gave the
You know,
opinion.
but one second, though.
I'm gonna-
You don't
I'm gonna
say
interrupt
we're
here,
going
guys.
to terminate someone and we'll discuss it
okay.
next month.
We're not going to get
No,
into a back and forth
I
discussion.
agree. Yeah, I don't
But
think
I
it's-
do want to clarify a couple things you said. You said that the sunshine law was violated. Me talking to Mr. Green about a separation agreement that he signed, and that's not where's the sunshine violation? I didn't talk to you. I didn't talk to anybody about a sunshine violation. That Mr. Green don't come under sunshine with me or you or anybody on this council. So that point where you said it was a sunshine violation is wrong. I don't know where you're coming up with all this magical stuff that's running around in your head. Another good thing, you said was a good deal again. I don't think it was a good deal, and I never said it was a good deal, and I don't remember anybody on this council saying it was a good deal. We got rid of him. It was maybe good for the citizens, somebody had said, or whatever. And I'm definitely not proud of it, like you said. I'm definitely, and I don't think anybody sitting here in their right mind would be proud of it.
No.
Maybe you are, but I'm not. But you're saying those words, so you must be talking about yourself, because you're not including me in any of that crap you're talking about. Go ahead. All right. You don't understand. You don't understand.
But that's the
But
thing,
you-
they want to understand, and you're not willing to say
I have
it.
a disclosure that I had to sign with, and you understand that. You're just pushing me. I'm not going to tell you. You can push all you want. We're going to
Okay.
move on to Mr.
Mr. Chair, if I can,
Brown, sir.
if I can interrupt to get us
Mr.
back to the
Randalls?
original.
Mr. Randalls, we're going to go to Mike Brown, because let Mike have his say. He wants to say something.
Okay, first I'd like to say
Our,
if I'm
press.
in violation of sunshine violation, please let me know what it is, because I haven't done anything wrong. Second,
I guess.
Second, I would like to say that the last city council meeting we had, as I recall, we took a break. And at that time, could Councilman Morrison had talked to the attorney to find out some of the issues, and he chose not to. Is that correct? Could he have spoke to you and you had enlightened him a little bit more? As I recall, he left the building instead of maybe.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, any council member
We
is
took a
free to
break.
speak with me on anything. Yes, we did take a break.
We took a break.
Yeah, we
And
did.
what I'm trying to say
We took a
is,
break
at that time,
to deal
could
with
you
the
have
add-on
enlightened him a
agenda
little
item
bit
that
more?
The mayor and the manager presented.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to say is, I definitely lost confidence in Mr. Green, and at that time, that was why I made that decision. And I think the contract that he had was valid, and we obviously decided to go ahead and take advantage of it. Good, bad, or whatever, I think we did what was best for the city at the time.
Hey, everybody's had a say. I'm not going to say anything. It's over with in my book. It's over with. We're going to move on, and we're going to go ahead and appoint as the agenda is calling out for us to appoint a city manager. Now, if somebody wants to make a motion to appoint somebody interim, permanently, or whatever, that's your option.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
But we will appoint somebody tonight to take over the position of city manager. And then I think the next proper thing would be to, if it comes out to be somebody that we are appointing here, to have them accept it, and then maybe talk to them about future salary or something. But how are we going to? This is the second time that I've been, and Rocky, I know you've been around this circus once before, and it's not an easy thing to do. Believe me.
No, it is a
Not
no-win
easy, but
situation, Mr. Chair.
I think that.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but maybe staff's uncomfortable presenting the item that was prepared by the staff, but let me just preface this agenda item, because you have options, obviously. I mean, the city staff put together this agenda item. You currently have appointed an interim city manager, Mia, at the last meeting, because you needed to fill the void and due to the termination of the previous city manager. At this time, staff has presented the agenda item. The council has a couple of options. laid out. You can decline to take action, in which case Mia would continue to serve in the interim capacity until the city council takes some other contrary action. Alternatively, the city council can appoint a new interim city manager to fill the position until such time the city manager is appointed, whether internally or externally. And lastly, the other option that's laid out is to appoint a city manager from among internal candidates. The city charter provides some guidance to you regarding the appointment of the city manager. The city manager shall be chosen on the basis of executive and administrative qualifications, and per the charter, the city manager serves at the will of the city council. So those are the options. Staff also, well, the directors in this particular case have made a suggestion to the city council. They have unanimously recommended that Economic Development Director Todd Morley serve in the capacity of interim or regular city manager. So those are your options currently. It's up to the city council. It's your discretion.
I'll start. I think that we should do a proper search. I feel that it doesn't have to be a nationwide search. I feel that Mia Goforth has done a good job. I think that she can continue as the interim city manager. I feel that our HR department, Jane Ross, is manager. I feel that she can do this. Perhaps it could be done on a Brevard County level, not nationwide, because we do not want hundreds and hundreds necessarily. I think that we have a lot of local talent, and I do tend to agree with our residents that the city manager should live in our city. This way, he has a vested interest in this city, like this council has a vested interest in our city. I think that's an important point. And I believe that I think internal candidates can apply for the job. I feel that they can stand up, and perhaps an internal staff member will become the city manager. That may very well be the case. But I do feel that we need a proper search. That's my opinion. And I feel that it's a professional way to handle things. And I'm sorry, staff, you might not like it, and you might not like the way I'm thinking, but I really feel that it is not a staff decision to nominate and say, this is who I want for city manager. I think this is the job of the city council, to interview and appoint a city manager. Thank you.
Okay, the only thing I like to say, I understand what you're saying, Mrs. or Councilman.
Raymond?
Yeah, Raymond, excuse me. I do take in consideration what the staff, they work day in, day with.
Yes, definitely.
And they have a good idea of who they would feel they can work best with. But I also feel that let's not have a rush to judgment. We can take 30 days and see if Mia Goforth will continue. And there are good people, internal people on staff right now that we would consider. And I think right now, there's no reason to expedite, because I think Mia is doing an excellent job.
I think the other reason why I think the city needs stability right now, I would also highly recommend that there is no new hiring or firing without the approval of city council during this period, unless there's, just cause, obviously. But I mean, I think that right now we need stability. And I think right now the city should consider just day-to-day work, do the projects that are necessary, take care of the necessary day-to-day business. However, I think we should just kind of ride along right this minute for the next 30 days, again, with Mia being the interim manager. And I think that's probably the best thing to do. Don't make necessarily huge changes. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Angela, I agree with part of what you're saying, and Some of it I don't agree with. But
That's
what do you
fine.
want to do in another 30 days? You said you just want to let it ride for another 30 days.
No, I think that we should have a search. I think we should start a search. I don't think necessarily a nationwide.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna
say
tell you-
keep it local.
Okay, I understand. But you're going to go out for a search. Have you ever been involved in one of those yet?
Sure, at the
Okay,
university.
well, the last one when we found Mr. Green was Rocky 20.
2009.
2009, we had 137 applicants nationwide.
And you go out for a search and you find people that spray bugs, you find people that mow yards, and they're all wanting to. So you find maybe 7 out of 200 that are qualified, you might say, and it costs you $15,000-$20,000 to get that person. And the average city manager's lifespan, some of them in Brevard County have survived for years, but the average is 4 to 7 years. We had Mr. Green's 9 years. We were lucky. And we paid some, well, you laughed. I said we were lucky to find somebody for 7 years that would last. I'm saying that the way I feel, I've talked to Mia. Mia's happy, but, you know, I think Mia, she's got her arms full. My thinking was if Mia would like to stay on, fine, but I would like to go out to the staff, which we all agreed to do last month, talk to staff and get the staff's feelings. I talked to 8 of the 9 members. One of them was away at class all week. I couldn't get a hold of him. But the 9 members told me Todd Morley. So my feelings are to come back and say, well, we'll go out for a headhunter and maybe spend what it'll be today is maybe $24,000. I don't know what it'll cost.
No one said anything about a headhunter.
I'm sorry?
I didn't say anything about a headhunter.
Well, you have to have somebody go out and find somebody for you. And that's a big process and it's an expensive process because you got to make up the packages and all that, just what you're looking for. Believe me, it's expense. And to me, it's not worth it. When we have somebody that all the directors in this city work together, that's why we have such a great city in my book, is our staff. It isn't us up here. We're not the guys that make the great city. Half of you don't like it, half of you do. So that's not great in my book. We have a great staff. I listen to staff very intently. I spend a lot of time listening to staff. When I come in City Hall, I try to see everybody and how they're going. What's going on? Tell me what's blah, blah, blah. I spend a lot of time in there. And I know Todd Morley. I know John DeLeo. I know David Dickey. I know all the guys. I know all of our staff members very well. And they all have the same confidence in one man. And they also had a lot of confidence in this lady right here. But she so chooses to do her job, and she does it very well. I talked to her as of late yesterday to go over it, and she said, whatever, I'll accept, but I got a lot to do. So she can't get her job done unless Daniel's there. She's flooded with requests. They're flooded with requests. So she can't really do her city clerk's job and do city manager job without answering 10,000 requests. And Daniel's busy just doing nothing but requests. So what are we getting done in the city clerk's office? Very little city clerk other than public service requests. She has had a lot on her plate. If she would like it, then all she's got to do is nod and say, yes, she'll take it on again another month. But my thinking is what I would like to present to this council is I have interviewed every director, and I had nobody say me anything bad. They all said Todd Morley is who they would work with best, and that's who they want to work with. So I propose to the council, if you agree or if you don't, we'll vote on it or whatever. Make it a motion that Todd does it for an interim of 6 months probation. And if it's agreeable to the council, make him permanent. And it'll save us $25,000, $30,000. We're always talking about saving money. Yeah, we spend a lot of money, but now we can take the opportunity and save some money by not going out and spending and finding somebody that may only stay 2 years. These people can come and go as they please. They don't like us, they can go. We don't like them, we can get rid of them. They're not here to marry you forever, like Rocky says, it's a marriage. It just goes and comes. So there's only been 4 city managers in my years of living in Brevard County that have exceeded 10 years. And I can name them. So it's not an easy thing for a city manager. Me personally, I wouldn't want the job because you got 5 people you got to please. It's a tough job, and you have to know. You got to know your city. You got to know your employees. You got to know who's treating you right back there in the other departments that's working for you, because they can get you in trouble real quick. And I would turn it over to the council to make a motion, but my feelings are, if Mia so desires, she can say yes or no. Or if y'all want to recommend Mia and we vote on it, however it comes out. But I would like to not burden her that much anymore. But if she wants to keep burdened, because I don't want to see Mia get down to where she can't do her job.
Mr. Mayor,
She's got a load.
if I can interrupt the chair just a quick moment here while you catch your breath.
I already got my breath wrong.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm done. I
The
just said my
first
sentence.
boring part of my speech, if it was that, or my thoughts, was that indeed a city manager is a key important in the operation of the city, as well as the city council. They make the decisions, they expect him to carry it out. Looking up above, and I think we still have, at least we have on our screen, we had 3 options, as the city attorney mentioned. We can appoint a new interim city manager. It's as though the mayor had read my notes here, I didn't get to them. Or appoint a city manager from internal candidates, or go out and, I think about the gentleman, we flew in from Waco, Texas at our expense last time, and the other people that we brought from all over the country here, trying to find somebody that would fit our niche. I'd have to take the second part of the city manager's thing. I'd like to even maybe make it stronger. I certainly could support a new interim city manager to fill the position internally. I'm not in favor of going out to the world, and I don't mean, Angela, you said that, but even to the state, that is an option, or even to the county. I had a little history with the post office, and we tried to promote from within if there was a willing person that had the support of the people in the post office that we were at, and they were the key makers of the decision. I could even be stronger than what you're saying, Mayor. I would, item number 2, appoint a city manager from among the internal candidates, or if the council decides, I certainly could support an interim city manager, but there has to be somebody there that can act without taking away from their other job. Mia's done a super job. She's handled all the critical things. She's the state, or our city clerk. But there's a lot on her plate too, with elections coming up, or her bailiwick there. So I think it's time. My first part was that city manager is a critical position. It needs to be filled as quick as logically possible, not that you grab the first person who comes in with a certain tie. But we've got people interested. I would support either one or 2 item there. I would prefer appointing a city manager from internal candidates that are interested and wanted and qualified. But I could certainly drop down and support or go up and support number 1. So that's kind of my feeling. It kind of, you read my notes, I guess, and I don't have them. You read my mind, maybe. Perhaps, but that's my thing. Wes, go ahead. I'm sorry I spoke before you were done.
And I'll try to go quickly here. Mia, may I ask, to do anything, got to be willing and able. It sounds like you were a part of that internal nomination process. I saw one of your names there, and it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out you supported Todd Morley in that as
Yes,
well.
yes, I did.
Which tells me that, moving forward, you're able, but you'd be willing to have Todd take that position over as the interim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's consistent with all the other directors, which I thought was a good idea internally to not value the staff's opinion that Councilmember Raymond actually brought up the last time. And so I just put a little statement together. I'm going to make it easy and read it here on this matter. I've been thinking about it a lot. The first item on the agenda tonight to appoint Todd Morley as our interim or permanent city manager. I'm concerned that our council may want to rush this process in a similar manner as how we ended the former city manager's employment last month by mutual separation agreement. Now being here, I can see that there's some mixed opinions. Number two, to me on this, appoint a city manager from internal is what I'm calling a rushed process. That quick decision obviously frustrated many of the residents within the community, and I think that it would be a mistake for us to rush back in and to choose another city manager permanently today. And that's the distinction I want to make. The agenda item says interim or a permanent one. I did have an opportunity to meet with Todd, and I felt, by my expression last time, that I agree with all of the staff and what the mayor has said, and many of us here today, that Todd is clearly the strongest candidate that we have. So out of all the options, Todd is undisputable number one pick for us on many respects. And I think that Todd has a lot of the qualities that our last city manager, with all due respect, was lacking. But to say that, we went out last time, and you couldn't have gotten better performance scores on a city manager than David Green got. And so if that's the case, we recruited and obtained David Green through that process. So if it was $15,000 or $20,000, it sounds like it was well worth it for us. Because I want to point out that if it worked then, why are we wanting to not do it now? So I'm in full support of appointing Todd Morley as the interim city manager, which is consistent with the statement in the last council meeting. After the meeting, I have received and reviewed the internal nomination, and see, as I said, that he was unanimously supported. I appreciated the time that I got to spend with Mr. Morley, who laid out some of his ideas and thoughts for the city. And if I had to write down what I was looking for, I felt like he lined up perfectly in many respects. However, again, I'm not in support of making this a permanent tonight. I don't believe that we need to get in a hurry. As stated earlier, I believe that we need to put some minimum and reasonable due diligence into considering other candidates. I also know that many citizens have expressed a desire, as we heard tonight, that our city manager must live within the city limits of Cape Canaveral. And this should be at least considered. We should also take into account that executive experience is valued, and or serving previously as a city manager in another capacity. While Mr. Todd Morley does not have executive experience or served as a previous city manager, I think he has something on his resume that's going to be hard to replicate, and that's 15 years of experience with the city of Cape Canaveral, serving as, I'm sorry, what is it? 18 years. That's nothing to sneeze at, giving his commitment and a large part of his life to this city. And he's, I think that will prove at time how that matches up compared to executive experience. I think we need to value that. And so at this time, I'm very thankful to have Mr. Morley step up and serve and be willing to do it as our interim city manager. But I do believe we need to take our time on making this permanent decision. I am in support of finishing the year out with an interim and then moving towards a strategic hire internally or externally over the next few months to have someone in that place at the right time. I'm confident that Mr. Morley is going to do an excellent job as our city manager, and it would take a very strong candidate to earn that position and replace him. If we do this right, the citizens of Cape Canaveral will win, because we will be able to look every one of them in the eyes and say that we took our time to evaluate all of our options, did our due diligence, and picked the right person for the job. So thank you.
For once, I agree with you, Wes. And I do agree with you on that. I think that we do need to do due diligence. And for one, I have not seen Todd Morley's resume. So that I have not seen. And that's something that I will have to review. And I feel that interim, I don't really have a problem with naming him interim city manager. But I do agree with Wes. I think we need to take our time and make certain that we have a perfect fit for the city. So that we want someone who's good and working with the entire staff, and the staff feels that Todd Morley, I respect and support the staff on that, but I do feel that the final decision has to be ours as a council. Thank you.
Well, if you remember, that's what I support either Todd or Mia, either way. But I think Todd is the right choice out of the two because of the workload that Mia has. Todd already has an office run by himself, but that can change as people get moved around. And I did state that I would support Todd, which I will do. But I would like to, I agree with what Wes is saying. We don't want to just jump in and say, yeah, he's going to be the guy the rest of our lives. Because that ain't going to happen either. This council changes and people come and go. City managers don't stay around because of the council. And it's not a guaranteed job. But I support Todd. We'll make a motion to bring Todd on as the interim city manager and give the council a 6 months review time with him. I think 6 months would probably be a nominal time, or maybe a year if you want to go a year, like you mentioned, a year. But are you talking a whole year or just?
I said to end the year out, so it'd actually be 3 months and then reassess at the beginning of the year, January.
The other question I have.
I would like to personally do 6 months, and that gives us a lot.
Time.
That gives us a lot because there's a lot of things that happen in 3 months maybe, and there's not a lot of things that happen in 3 months. So it's, but I would like to at least go into maybe like after the first of the year into the
6 months. I think is
like
6
that.
months. I think the 6 months. You have to give people time to
3
get
months
used to
isn't
a
any
job.
time to.
I have one other question though. If Todd is going to be the interim city manager, who will do economic development, or will that just be part of the job?
That'd be up to Todd. Todd, if he is the city manager, he runs the city. We have nothing to say about who he picks or who he picks as a deputy city manager. We don't get involved in that.
Well, I was given this new form, and I was just curious. That's just curiosity.
Right.
that pops into my
He'll
head.
be the one that makes that decision. That's up to him. As that's part of his process of being reviewed by us, of what he does and how he operates. And
Again, I think the stability of the city at this time, it's a tentative situation. I feel that stability is very important. So I think it's a valid question that I'm asking.
no, I can't tell you that because I don't know. It's not up to us to appoint who takes his place.
Yeah, and I'd just like to chime in and echo what the mayor, in the code of conduct, there's the non-interference clause. And if we,
Right, this is
when
correct.
we take Todd into consideration, we believe that he can do the job in its entirety. And, I believe that stability will increase in the absence of the former city manager and increase. The stability was, in my opinion, from the first day I was elected and walked in with Mr. Green, and it's night and day to me. And so I think that if we were ever going to be considered about that, it was the past 2 years. But with all due respect, I think Todd is fully capable and willing to handle, as the mayor said, make all of those executive decisions. We'll work with his team of directors that you can see do believe in him, and I know that he'll make the right choice. And I do oppose any idea in respect to being, making it council's decision before anyone can be fired or let go. I think that that's a bit of an overreach. And we have to give them the autonomy and the flexibility and those values so he can do a good job. The last thing he needs is 5 council members looking over his shoulder saying, you can't discipline or enforce or let anyone go. And, it'd be up to Todd whether or not I think he wants to handle that. And if that's something you feel strongly about, that would, I think, have to be a policy decision anyway, so.
I don't think if the 8 directors are supporting him, I don't think they would be supporting him if there was a problem. And if he was gonna be firing one of them, I don't think they'd be supporting him. Because believe me, I did a lot of questioning when I went and talked to these guys and ladies. You can ask any of them. They're all here. My decision came down to Todd Morley, Mia, I started to say Farrow again. Mia Goforth, and John DeLeo. I had those 3 people in my mind as an interim. And as it turned out, Mia became interim that night. But through the last council meeting, we instructed those people to meet among yourselves and you pick out who you would like to serve under until we get this satisfied. And that's where we're at. We're at that threshold, and I think if somebody wants to make a motion for whoever, or for Todd, or whatever, we'll put it on I would like to do at least 6 months or a year, whatever you so choose, to give yourself enough time to evaluate how he's running the city for you. That's what it's all about. And all that is on your evaluation forms. How he works with other departments, how the departments are doing, and so forth. And that's all what you evaluate him on. So
Okay.
I just kind of, that's my feelings. That's my feelings.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion that we accept Todd Morley as interim city manager for a period of 6 months.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, any more discussion before we vote? Because we have a motion and a second, and normally we just vote, but if you want to say something, Angie, you look down this way.
Only a point of discussion, you have a motion and a second, so it's discussable.
Go ahead.
We picked the weaker of the 2. Number 2 is appointing a city manager. I wonder if it would be thoughtful to go to we have a motion and a second. I guess I feel strong about the number 2, about appointing from internal candidates. And it's hard being on probation for 6 months or 3 months. It's darn hard. Here's a man that has been 18 years.
No, I understand. I wouldn't do that. I would do that to satisfy everybody's, I've listened very intently to everybody's
Well,
query.
you read it better than me.
And
so.
I would support him without a probation period. I've known Todd since the day he hit the door. And Todd has done an excellent job for the city. He's been a building inspector, he's been a building official, he's been whatever is needed to get covered. He goes over to Public Works and covers things for them, does inspections, and he's not even an inspector no more. He's another department, so he's all over. He's like fish in the water. But I know Todd personally. I've always admired Todd. And the utmost thing to admire about Todd is he's honest.
Yeah.
He's honest. He will never tell you anything that's not correct. You can go and search forever and you'll never find that man lie to you. He tells the truth. And that's what I like about Todd. So if you got anything else to say, we got a motion and a second on the floor to appoint him, but I didn't hear a probation time.
6 months.
6 months?
6 months.
6 months, okay.
Can I offer, can I offer
Oh,
just
all
one
these
suggestion
comments.
on the 6 months, because council.
We can't hear you way down here, Mr. Attorney.
No, the mic is on. Just one suggestion, I understand the motion as presented is to appoint Todd Morley interim city manager for 6 months. I would recommend that you add to that motion, or unless otherwise determined by council, because council always has the discretion to reassess at any time.
No problem.
That is true.
But we do have that in.
Is that all right to amend your motion? I don't have a problem with that. I just want to get somebody to take control of this city until we get where we're going. We got a lot happening.
So if both the motion maker and the second accepts that, then what? That's a good point, Mr. Attorney.
You made the motion and Wes, you seconded it. Acceptable to you?
And this is effective immediately, right?
This will be effective immediately, and until the council decides otherwise, he's under 6 months probation. And at that time, we'll come back and we'll review if we want to keep Todd on as.
I don't
permanent
like the
or-
word probation. I like 6 months and we'll review the results.
Okay, well, that's,
But that's not
But
a
that's what
long
probation
time to
is.
make things happen. Our budget, for instance, here,
well, Rocky, you have the option to make it longer if you so desire, if the motion maker accepts that. I'm just saying we need to get something in place, move forward. We can go on all night and make it permanent if you want, but I feel like we need to satisfy everybody's wishes here.
yeah,
So you do
I
what you
don't
need to
wish
do.
to kill a winning horse here. If we got a winner to make an eternal improvement here and on one of our people, I don't wish to make it so difficult that we fail.
You do what you guys are open to the motion. I'm just telling you how I feel, because I've listened to everybody and everybody's not.
Yeah.
Angela had a problem with.
No,
and, you know,
interim, I think
well,
that
I'm
if we
listening to
say
everything
interim.
everybody said, so I kind of just gelled up an idea real quick in my head, boom.
But we have a motion on the floor.
I know.
Right now in a second.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna call a question, but everybody keeps wanting to interrupt. So we're gonna call a question. Call the question. For the motion for Mr. Morley on a 6 months review.
Interim.
Interim,
6 months,
The
and then at the discretion of the council.
motion is
That's the
to
way to-
appoint Todd Morley as interim city manager for 6 months or unless otherwise determined by the council.
Right.
Right? That's the motion.
Okay.
Call the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Wow.
okay. Three.
Mia, you got up quick.
Does he accept
Oh, he's
this?
gotta come on up, yeah.
Ma-
Okay.
And thank you, Mia.
Mr. Chair, can we have maybe a recess for us people that
I second.
maybe have some more
Can I make
important
one
place to
quick
go
comment
now?
before we go to recess?
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for the confidence that you put in me, and I love seeing the unity on the council on that item, and I look forward to a lot more unity on this council.
All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and it's gonna be 10 minutes, no longer, and we're gonna start again. It's 10 after 8, or 8 after 8, it looks like. We went through item number 1, and we got a long way to go. Now we're gonna move to item 13 of Code of Conduct, which Ms. Randall, or
Mrs. Raymond,
excuse me,
please.
move forward. Ms. Raymond.
Are we ready? All right. In my discussion, I am referring to City Code Section 228, City of Cape Canaveral Council Member Code of Conduct. In addition to adhering to the requirements of state law, all council members shall commit to the following code of conduct by written affirmation, which shall remain on file with the city clerk. Council members and candidates for the Cape Canaveral City Council sign the above-mentioned code of conduct in accordance with the city law. I just want to point out, this is the notebook that is given to people who qualify for city council. When you step in and say, I'd like to become a city council member, I have a vested interest in this city, and I feel that I would be a good servant leader, because we are servant leaders. This is the candidate packet. It has the ordinances, has the rules on temporary signs. It has a lot of information, but most important, it has the code of conduct. And I just want to give you my summary of this, and it's up on the screen. But I do want to read very briefly, and you can look this up about the code of conduct. I just want to give you a few salient points. City Council is to act collectively, not individually, to set and revise and to apply the city's governing policies, and that the city manager and staff administer such policies. That's the way this works. This is the type of city government that is run by the city manager on a day-to-day basis. He goes through and he operates and manages. We do not interfere in that. The council member does not manage the affairs of the city. City policy is set by the majority of the city council and not by the wishes of one individual council member. Council members should avoid conflicts and using one's official position for personal, professional, or partisan gain. In addition, a council member must refrain from any individual action that could compromise lawfully authorized decisions of the city or the integrity of the city. A council member is required to support and accept the duly authorized decisions of the city council and city electorate. A council member cannot be for and against the city he is representing. In conclusion, a council member must always look out for the best interest of the citizens of the city, and with appropriate leadership that nurtures and motivates city citizens to be stakeholders in the affairs and achievements of the city. In other words, a council member should work to create a positive environment for the good of all. Now, in the code of conduct, I just want to point out a couple of things, just a couple. Look carefully at every council member may have their own opinions and beliefs. You heard that tonight. But once a decision is made, that's it. That's the decision. That's the way it goes. And anyone else that wants to talk about this can. But I think in the end, we want to build a positive community. We want to have community support. We're trying to go through with the city's mission. We have our vision statement that you will see right near the elevator here, upstairs and downstairs. And that is what we're trying to achieve. But once we have a decision made, we abide by that decision. And it says right in here, I will devote adequate time. So we just take that as a given, that we devote adequate time to preparation before meetings. We respect one another, and we try to uphold any decisions made. That's pretty much wraps it up. That pretty much wraps up what I'd like to say. That's it right now. I want to say that I've heard from other councils, anyone can chime in, that some of the councils police their own. And when they see something that isn't quite conducive to our having a business meeting, because we feel this is a business meeting, that's what we're doing, is trying to establish ordinances and policies, that some of the councils police themselves and say, we're supposed to be a team, a unit, and we do need to work together, and in a very positive way. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments? We move up to presentation and interviews, which we have.
We may have scared everybody away, Mr. Chair.
They're tired. They're hungry.
All right. Joel Fair is the first interviewee. There are two interviews on the City Council agenda, both for the position of the Culture and Leisure Services Advisory Board. Mr. Fair?
It's me.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here this evening.
A couple of questions, and then I'll turn it over to the council. All the information in your application, true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Please explain to the City Council why you would like to serve on the Cultural and Leisure Services Board.
Okay. My wife and I and our 4 children live in Cape Canaveral, across the street from Canaveral City Park. And we are heavily involved in Space Coast Little League now for 5 years since we've lived here. And so we have a great relationship with the city. Space Coast Little League is Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. So we've interacted with Gustavo and the rest of his staff quite a bit in the amount of time that we've been here. Again, I have 4 kids, and they have all, 3 of the 4 have participated in the summer camp. It's an incredible summer camp. It's just really good job. So if you know anything about it, you would say the same thing. So we love being here. We love this city. As much as we interact in the parks and at the beach and the different things, I had an opportunity to apply, and I said I'd love to be a voice of maybe even some younger kids and different things that are going on, and so speak to that. So that's why I wanted to do it. Again, I'm excited about being able to have a say and to hear what other people are saying and take that to the advisory board. That's it.
Thank you. Council?
I have one for Mr. Fair. If I normally wouldn't ask this, but you put this thing down. On the second page, it says, interest and experience. Briefly state your interest in serving on the city council board. I want to serve our city and what's your word? And being a different perspective. Can you share that with us? That's not going to be a question to fail on, but I'm just so interested in what you see that we don't.
Right. Well, I think that to have someone that's younger to be able to speak, that has young kids and has time to be on an advisory board, that's usually pretty rare, especially when you have young kids, because you don't have a lot of extra time. So that's mainly where I was going with that, a different perspective. And so that's what I was speaking to there.
Well, that's good, because that goes in line with our big expensive, as it was quoted a few minutes ago, multi-generational for the youth and for the seniors in one building.
Right.
So that's good. I didn't know what you were talking to. I wouldn't have entered into that if you hadn't put that down. That's a kind of a personal question. I didn't know which way you were going.
Yep. Well, and then one of the other things that I have by being involved in Little League, as both on the board and as a coach for several teams for many seasons, is I have what the kids are doing. And I live across from the park, so I get to see the kids out there. And I think that building this facility is going to be really helpful in them getting supervised, right? Supervised, and that's huge. A supervised place to go and play and be safe, both physically, emotionally, all of the things that go on there. So I'm excited about that.
I like your word about being safe, because I've been there when some people from neighboring communities have chased our smaller kids off the basketball court.
Okay.
That's not good.
It's not.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Fair, I love your body of work. You walk the walk, and you're out there with our kids. And I also, if you see my grandson and he's on your baseball team and he's acting up, you have my permission to discipline him.
Yes, sir.
Also, this is how good a coach Mr. Fair is. His Little League, the All-Star team, hadn't won a game in how many years?
As long as I've been part of the league.
And you've been there a while.
I've been there 5 years, yes.
The last year, or the last spring season, they did win their first All-Star game, and I want to give you credit for that.
We did.
For all your hard work.
It was pretty fantastic. Thank you.
You're an asset to the community, and I look forward for you being on this board.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is he fair?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh.
By birth.
Poet laureate down there.
Okay.
Okay. Wes?
Just want to say thank you very much for getting involved and rolling up. I got a young 11-year-old. I can't imagine having 4. And hats off to you where you find the time. I need to take notes. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wow.
I would like to thank you for your service, your past service, and coming on board. And I do appreciate you very much, sir. I see you're a pastor, so
Yes, sir.
I know you'll do the service of this city some good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for applying.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else have it? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again. We'll take care of the appointment here in a minute. Ms. Parks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Same question, all the information in your application is true and correct, to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please explain to the council why you would like to serve on the Cultural and Leisure Services Board.
Well, I have been in this area since 1959. I've watched it grow. I enjoy the parks around here. I've actually got a new granddaughter, so we're trying out every swing set and every slide in the county. And I just want to be more a part of the community. And I think I've got some things to offer in that area.
Wow.
Okay. Council? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Angela.
Well, I was just going to comment about court reporter. You probably go back to when you used to talk into a microphone.
I never did that, but I was a Greg Penn writer.
Really?
Yes, sir, for 32 years.
Wow. Thank you for selecting our community to live in.
I love it. I've been here my whole life.
Wow.
Oh, we know how old you are.
Yeah, you do. I've been around a little bit.
I look forward to you, Ms. Parks, coming on board. I think you're going to be an excellent asset to the city.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to it.
What are you involved in right now, recreation-wise, for the city?
I play a whole lot of tennis over here at the rec center. I captain a 50 and older women's team with the Space Coast Tennis League. So Angela's on the team. So I spend a whole lot of time over at the rec center. I live right on Banana River Park, and I love watching all those little kids play soccer. That's my entertainment. In my backyard, I can sit on the balcony and watch the children play, and that's one of my favorite things to do.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering for this position.
I'd like to personally thank you. I never have met you, and you've been here since 1959. Have you been in this city since 59?
I grew up in Titusville,
Okay,
and I've been in and out. Mother and Daddy were on Merritt Island,
okay.
and
Yeah.
and I moved back here to take care of my mother.
Yeah, I've been here all my life, so. But I have met you, and I
I
appreciate
have met
you
actually
volunteering.
at a couple of events.
I'm sorry?
I have met you at a couple of events.
Yeah. But I do appreciate you volunteering, and I know with your background is kind of in his department down there. But you'll do good out of
Yeah, I spent a whole lot.
If
lot
you're
of
playing
time with
tennis
those
with
guys.
Angela, I really feel sorry for you. But anyway, welcome,
have
I
fun.
appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be discussing those or passing them in the code consent agenda. Okay, we go on to the consent agenda. We have items 2, 3, 4, I think it was 8 or 9. We got 9 items.
Up to 9.
Anybody care to pull any of those 9 items?
I want to pull one briefly, the blacks, pesticide, weed management, chemical.
3?
Item number, I'm trying to find it. What number is that?
It's later on, it's not number 3.
seven. Number seven on
6 or
consent.
7?
Yep, number 7, please. It's the only one I need to pull.
Was you gonna pull 3, or you said 3, or did you just meant black?
Number 7.
Just number 7.
Okay, okay. Anybody else have anything they want to discuss? Okay, we'll make a motion for items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. To pass.
I move that we pass the consent agenda items 1 through 9 with an exception of number
7.
7.
A second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to pass the items other than number 7 on the consent agenda. Call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
Or the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
It's items 2,
Every
2,
item but
5,
7.
6, 8, and 9.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and
we
9.
pass all of them but number 7.
4, correct.
Okay, number 7, Wes.
Thank you. This is something that keeps coming up in the headline news and talking about cities with the state of the lagoon and where it is. Everyone's concerned about what type of chemicals we're putting in the ground. I know we're in a no fertilizer area. I brought this up last year, And just wanting to follow up again, glyphosate is the chemical that people are concerned about causing cancer. I know the verdict's still out, but my concern and more or less question is just to ensure that in this contract we are doing our absolute best to limit that as much as possible. I know that in the sustainability plan, I think, may have spoke to this. And so if there's any way that we can maybe work on both ends of the spectrum and try to eliminate the use of that, especially along the waterways, I know that many of the citizens would feel comfortable. I don't like weeds, but if it means that we got to have a few extra weeds in a pretty lagoon, it's worth it to me. And you know, this is a 1-year contract, so you know, we already might be going there. It's more of an expression of hope that we can move towards that if possible. Some cities have completely banned the use of glyphosate. I'm not advocating for that, especially to private property owners, but we as a government entity make decisions for everyone, and I think for us, we should seriously consider limiting that, if not completely trying not to use it at all for a year. And that's my request, if that can be reflected in the contract, to test it for a year, and we're not going to get, you know, consumed by giant weeds. I think it'd be worth an attempt, something I'd be very proud of.
I'll second that.
So what are you asking, Wes? Do we rewrite a new contract, or
if it's if the chemicals that are used in these terms, herbicides or whatever, have them, let me add to that. I want to do it, obviously, if it makes sense. I see other cities doing it, so I figured if they can do it, we can, and I want to make sure it's the right choice and lean on the people who know. But yes, if it means taking out any or adding into the contract, shall restrict the use of glyphosate products, and I'm not an expert on this, but I just know that that's the one that a lot of folks are concerned about. Yep. I don't think it really speaks to that.
I know when we, excuse me, I didn't know. You through? Or
Yes, sir, I'm through.
when we went through this pesticides, 7, 8 years ago, there was people from all walks of life that deal with this stuff came in and told the city everything that these lawn fertilizing companies would be using would be not detrimental to, because the lagoon at that time was a big concern to everybody back 7 years ago. It's been probably a little bit longer. But I don't know, I don't have a problem with if there's something in the weed control that they're using that is detrimental. Yeah, definitely, let's get rid of it, but get rid of that. But we're gonna have to have this company redo a new contract, which I don't know how pressing this is at the time right now. Who's here to answer this?
And I can add a little relief to this, is to say that, you know, I'd be in favor of moving forward with this contract, that it may be in 30 days if we bring it back, and that the experts can speak to it and say, you know, commit to something. I know that there's options out there, and if
My question, though, on what your thoughts are, I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but my thoughts are we're gonna pass a contract for $49,496 tonight, and then come back and ask the contractor to renew his contract price. Being a contract, I don't think that's fair to start with, unless we forewarned him that this was gonna be coming up.
Tim Carlisle's here to speak to this.
Who?
Tim Carlisle.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you.
Hey, you guys, how you doing?
Yes, Mr. Carlisle, you're the.
Yeah,
public
okay, so
works
I put this contract together last year, this year. We as a city have actually started turning towards more all-natural herbicides. It's called Green Gobbler. I've been working with Zach, the sustainability analyst. We work hand in hand trying to do as much as we can sustainability-wise, including pesticides, chemicals, and everything. Last year I got with Black's Pest Control and asked them, I wanted a whole list of what chemicals were in each thing. And then I pretty much side by side with the FDEP made sure that it was within regulations. I'd like to start leaning towards all natural everything. The only problem that I've seen in some of the herbicides that we have used is that we'll have to buy more of it, which is more costly. So when it comes down to a cost efficient and then you go down to what's better, I mean, of course, it's totally up to the council and whatnot if you guys want to go that way. But they were under FDEP regulations last time I checked. And we do aquatic herbicides as well, but we have to pull a special permit throughout the FDEP strictly for that.
Could we move forward with this contract as is and then come back and amend the contract if you were able to get a quote to show the difference in cost? I mean, I'm sure they would happily change the product over.
For all natural?
Yeah, so move forward with this and then, bring a proposal to council at the next one to say, hey, here's how much extra it's gonna cost.
Mhm.
And if we could, we wouldn't go back, but if council felt like that would be cost effective.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've been working really close with Zach, sustainability wise. In fact, I've already started looking up ant killer that's all natural. I mean, so I mean, we're slowly making headway. I'm gonna check out a few of those cities that are supposedly going totally green with pesticides and herbicides. If you can maybe steer me in the right way of who what city.
Satellite Beach.
Satellite Beach, okay, perfect. I'll start there.
Stewart,
okay.
yeah.
And then we'll just grow, not literally, but.
With the health of this budget, if there's an increased cost, I think council would support that we have the money in the budget. It's important to the community, and if we can do the all-natural, even if it costs $10,000, $15,000 for the community safety, lagoon, what have you, it's money well spent.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying, I don't want to be unfair to this guy. We give him the option to price us back, and we can agree to it otherwise.
I think Councilman
Otherwise, you're stuck with
Morrison,
a contract.
I think Councilman Morrison's comment is accurate in the sense that you keep what we have, you go back to them, they adjust. If we need to get some type of change in scope or whatever, we do it. We pay the increased cost, and the community's better for it.
If I may restate, I think what we're saying is let's approve the agreement tonight and get a proposed addendum at the next council meeting.
Can I just add that I went to Space Coast League of Cities last night, and for the 2020 legislative priorities, the lagoon, of course, is number one, and it very clearly says the advocacy team, we support funding for mitigation and removal of existing pollutants and prevention of additional nutrients entering these waterways, contributing to the death of natural seagrasses and aquatic species. So rest assured, that's what they're going to be going to Tallahassee, and this is one of their top priority for Space Coast. Thank you.
All right, council, I have a card that would like to speak, so before we do a vote on what we're going to do here, we'll let the lady, Ms. Callum.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to say, and I agree with what Mr. Morrison said, and I had the opportunity to spend the morning with Zach out at the sustainability and the recycling water. And I think as a city, it's important for us to lead. If we don't want the citizens using, the bad fertilizer and all that, that we need to set an example and teach the citizens what the right thing is to do. And I talked with Zach for a long time, who is doing an awesome job out there. And, also educating the citizens on, washing your car in the grass and simple things like that, that we all can do for the lagoon. But I think that as a city, we need to set the example that we are using natural stuff. So you guys have to. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mick. Okay, the only question I had is, we're going to approve this $49,496 tonight, and then you're going to go back to the contractor and ask him for a change order, or a change order, addendum, whatever, to the contract to add or use a natural pesticide. Okay, and then we're gonna bring that new contract back for approval next meeting or whatever. Okay? Okay?
And
No problem with that.
if it makes it easier, what the total contract's what, 40,000? What is 49,000? So if it's, to John's point, 20%, I mean, we could say as long as it's not a
Wait minute,
substantial.
don't be putting no price on it, because we're in a public meeting and it's out there, and I'm a lawn spray guy, and
Oh,
you're
it's
gonna
on-
give me
it's just-
60,000, so my price is gonna be $59,285.
Thank you. No,
No,
I
this-
respect that.
We don't wanna put any price on it. We're
Good
gonna
point.
pass
Okay.
that point.
Touche.
You're in a
Thank you.
public, you're in a public meeting that's being aired, so.
So, thank you. I would move that we pass the contract, sign the addendum as written, with a request to bring back an addendum for council to consider at the next council meeting.
Good motion.
Seconded.
Got a second on the motion to pass item number 7 at $49,496 to Black Spray Service as written, and then bring back an addendum item the next meeting or whenever. Is that a next meeting, or do you think you can do it in that time, Tim?
It's reasonable, yeah.
Mr. Wonderful, okay. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
4.
Mayor Hogue?
4.
Councilmember Morrison?
4.
Councilmember Randalls?
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond?
4.
Okay, we're moving up to old business, and that's item number 10 is a resolution 2019-13, right-of-way maintenance, Oak Manor, or Oak Lane. And this was an item table, and we have to have a vote to pull it back off the table to discuss it.
Make a motion that we pull it from the table and discuss.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to pull item number 10. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
4.
Mayor Hogue?
4.
Councilmember Morrison?
4.
Councilmember Randalls?
For the motion to remove it from the table.
Councilmember Raymond?
4.
Okay, we're open for discussion on item number 10. And this is due to the maintenance right-of-way of Oak Lane, which was tabled back on September the 17th. Council? You all have the new information that was brought to the land surveyor give us? Oh, I'm sorry. Anthony.
No, that's okay.
I'm
I'll be
sorry.
happy just to give a quick introduction. I think there was some discussion at the last meeting regarding this, and as the council knows, John Campbell has prepared a survey regarding Oak Lane. Each of the council members had an opportunity before this meeting to meet one-on-one with him to go over the survey individually. And so you had a little bit of a preface before the meeting. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider approval of a right-of-way and maintenance map pursuant to Florida statutes. Florida statutes does authorize municipalities to certify and record right-of-way maps with the clerk of the court when public roads are regularly maintained and repaired continuously or uninterruptedly by applicable statutory minimums of 4 or 7 years, depending on the circumstances. Substantial portion of Oak Lane was conveyed to the city of Cape Canaveral based on a county deed back in the 70s. There are 2 segments of Oak Lane, the area closest to North Atlantic, and a small little rectangular portion at the far western cul-de-sac of Oak Lane that was not conveyed to the city by the county, by county deed. However, according to the city staff, those areas were or have been maintained regularly and uninterruptedly by the city for public right-of-way purposes. So the city tasked John Campbell, surveyor, to go out and actually conduct a meets and bounds survey and present it to the city to include not only the area that was conveyed to the city by county deed, but those areas that have been regularly and uninterruptedly maintained by the city for for about 40 years. Mr. Campbell is here to answer any questions regarding the survey. As the council is aware, there have been some significant issues regarding setbacks and lot lines and the construction of several homes along the southern portion of Oak Lane that have called into question various issues with the city and the residents. It was during this process that the city determined that, at least within its control, the city could have Oak Lane surveyed. I think you'll hear from Mr. Campbell if he comes up. As far as we're aware, this is the first time that Oak Lane, the unpaved road, has been surveyed by Meets and Bounds legal description. So we're presenting the right-of-way map to the city council for consideration to at least identify the location of Oak Lane for public records purposes.
Do you want to read the heading of the?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The resolution's rather short. It's resolution number 2019-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, certifying a right-of-way and maintenance map of Oak Lane located within the jurisdictional limits of the City of Cape Canaveral, Florida, providing for the filing of the map in the office of the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Brevard County pursuant to Section 95-361 Florida statutes, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent resolution, severability, and an effective date. It's a rather short resolution, and if approved, it would adopt the right-of-way map that is in your package.
Thank you, sir. All right, Council, you've all had it for probably a week, and I hope you all went one-on-one with Mr. Campbell, as was requested, so there shouldn't be any surprises.
Mayor, I wish to make a motion, but just a quick thought in here. Because I spoke against it to begin with, a substantial portion of Oak Lane was conveyed to the city by Brevard County in 1977, and staff and Mr. Campbell had clarified the difference between substantial portion that we got, and there was some remaining, and he put it in here, and it is in the bottom at the beginning. Circuit Court is decided where public roads are regularly maintained or repaired continuously and uninterruptedly by the applicable government agency for a statutory minimum of years of 4 out of 7. So we have the right to declare it since we maintained it, the portion that wasn't given to us. So it's all legal through the fact that we've been recording the right-of-way. So, John, thank you, and thank you for staff and David that took a lot of time to satisfy my desires, but I understand it now. So I would move for approval, if there's no other thing, approval of adopting resolution number 2019-13.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt resolution 2019-13 for the right-of-way maintenance of map of Oak Lane. Call the roll.
Public input.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. Okay. We have several cards, and like I said before, there's people that have both items on one card. There's this item, and the next item is on one card on several of the, so we'll call you up just for this item, and then when the other item comes up, you'll get called again. Catherine Seidel is item number 10 and 11. And then Mark pass on both or just one? Okay. Mark James, there he is. You have an item for both items, sir.
Yes, my name is Mark James. My wife and I live at 135 Oak Lane. I'm sorry?
You have two cards, and you have both items on one card, or both cards, so I'm gonna just discard one, because it's, okay.
Okay.
You're good, go ahead, thank you.
My name is Mark James. My wife and I live at 135 Oak Lane. That's one of the properties that was developed by Sharopa. Our understanding of the resolution is that it will define the boundaries of the road, which is heretofore has not been done, and it will provide a positive step forward for both the city of Cape Canaveral and for the residents of Oak Lane. And we would urge you to vote in favor of adopting this resolution. And if I understood you, Mayor, correctly, you said that I would be called up again to speak in favor or speak for the ordinance?
I didn't understand you.
Did you say I would be called again to speak for the ordinance?
Yes.
For the second item, number 11, yes.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
yeah. We haven't got into that one yet, so.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, sir.
James. It's
Thank
been
you.
a long fight.
Okay, we'll close public hearing unless somebody has something they want to say. Close public hearing. Back to the council.
Nothing from me. Do we not
We
have
got
a motion for
We
it?
have a motion and a second. I just want to make sure everybody's through.
Yeah, we're okay.
Angela?
Yeah, I understand it.
Call the
I
roll,
asked a
please.
lot of questions.
Okay, you have a lot of questions?
I asked a lot of questions of Mr. Campbell, and I was satisfied with his answers, and I
Okay.
agree with it. Thank you.
Okay, that's why I say, that's why we had that meeting. Answered all your questions. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For approval of resolution 2019-13.
Councilmember Raymond.
Or,
all right, into item number 11.
We're
That's
on a roll now, boss.
ordinance number 17, 2019, amending the supplementary zoning district.
That was also postponed to this meeting
We
at
have
the
to
last
pull
meeting,
that
so
off the
you
table, do we
need
not?
to please pull it off the table.
Yeah. So we're gonna get a motion to pull it from the table to discuss it, and then we'll discuss it and move on.
Make a motion to remove it from the table and discuss.
seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Brown and a second by Angela Raymond. Would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
Or,
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion to remove.
Councilmember Raymond.
Or,
okay, item number 11, Mr.
Yep,
Garganese.
ordinance number 17-2019, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, amending the supplemental zoning district regulations regarding Oak Lane, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions, incorporation into the code, severability, and an effective date. This is first reading of this ordinance. This ordinance references the right-of-way map that the City Council just approved. The other aspect of Mr. Campbell's task with the city was to prepare a map of survey and provide a lot of different, engineering information, also identify various items that are within the Oak Lane right-of-way, such as mailboxes and landscaping and driveway aprons, et cetera. Based on the map of survey, this ordinance proposes to amend the supplemental district regulations regarding Oak Lane. And if this ordinance were to pass, the ordinance would amend the minimum front setback requirements to a minimum of 19 feet. In addition, this ordinance would recognize that those encroachments currently in the right-of-way, such as driveway aprons, curbing, pavers, mailboxes, landscaping, and utilities, may be maintained by the property owners within this unpaved right-of-way at the property owner's expense. However, if and when the city needs to have the property owners remove or relocate those items because of right-of-way purposes, then the city council would provide written notice to those property owners regarding the removal and relocation of those items within the right-of-way. For example, if an emergency exists or the items interfere with the free flow of vehicular or pedestrian traffic within Oak Lane, or whether the city had to repair, maintain, or improve Oak Lane at any time in the future, the city could request that those private property owners remove or relocate those items so the city can maintain the Oak Lane for right-of-way purposes. Be happy to answer any specific questions you have regarding this ordinance.
Anthony, quick point of clarity. You said that they can request to remove them, I think? They must move them.
They must
Okay,
move.
just
The
making
city
sure.
would provide written notice.
Okay.
And because the primary reason is that Oak Lane is a right-of-way, and to the extent that those improvements from private property owners need to be removed or relocated, the city would provide the written notice, and the right-of-way aspect would override those other encroachments. But if there's no reason to interfere or move those items, then they can remain under this ordinance, just like they currently exist.
Thank you.
Questions? Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Comments? We'll look for
If
one.
you're coming to me, Mayor, I just wish the prior audience that's already left would see how hard and difficult it is getting a little thing like a setback to please everybody. But this is only first reading, of course. But this has been a long effort for 4 or 5 homes that has gone on for 2 or 3 years.
But it was necessary.
Yeah.
And I think that the residents are happy with this finally, they're happy.
It and the important thing, it perpetuates in the future by passing this ordinance that indeed, because they're only 19 feet from the right of way, but we gave them permission to be exempt. So that's important for the future sale of those pieces of property.
My history of knowing it's not the first time. It's
I
been done
know.
in other cities. I know one that's 15 feet from the road in another city.
But
So
it's
the accidents happen, and it's like I've always said, surveys aren't perfect, so we got crucified for that, but that's the way it works. All right, we're going to go to public hearings. Mr. James, did you want to speak on 11? You got it. Thank you.
My name is Mark James, and my wife and I still live at 135 Oak Lane. But,
Haven't moved yet.
No, not yet. As I stated before, that is one of the properties that was developed by Shiropa, and we purchased that property in 2015. The city issued permits and certificate of occupancies based upon information provided to them by a registered professional surveyor in the state of Florida. Unfortunately, there were mistakes on that, and thus we end up with setbacks that are not correct. Mr. Campbell came in and did a survey of the entire road. It turns out that those houses are not the only ones that violate the setbacks. There's at least one existing house that violates it as well. So passing this ordinance would bring a great deal of relief to my wife and I know to other residents on the street, and allow us to move forward. And again, I urge you to vote in favor of adopting this ordinance. Thank you.
thank you, a happy resident.
I'm just sorry it took so long. We're here. Okay, public hearing is Pat, Mr. Lee.
My name is Patrick Lee, and I reside at 400 Harbor Drive. I am the president of Shiropa LLC, and this adventure started 6 years ago, not 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, we submitted permits to the city to build the first house at 139, and we received building permits. Unbeknownst to me, the city knew there were problems, survey problems in this area. They should have never issued the building permit. They went ahead and issued CO on 139. We began 135. And it wasn't until January 25th, 2017, that the city sent us a letter telling us to stop all construction. Well, by then, we had had 3 houses finished, CO'd, and sold. Had we known there was a surveying error, all we would have had to do was push the houses back 5 feet. We had plenty of land. That would not have been a problem. There was nothing superstitious about what we did. It was done through an honest mistake, through a licensed surveyor, and I'm not even sure he made a real mistake. There's been 5 surveys of this property. No 2 of them agree. No 2 of them. And even John Campbell, here, when he presented his findings, made a statement to the body that was here that this was his best guess as to where Oak Lane belonged. Not surveyed perfectly, best guess. And Brevard County told my lawyer that they couldn't tell us where North Atlantic Avenue is. They have no record of North Atlantic Avenue. So there's a lot of problems on this north end of the city, none of them caused by us. So we really request your approval of this message.
Wow.
It's in the best interest of the city of Cape Canaveral to approve that end of Cape Canaveral. There's only 2 streets in the city that are not paved, and that's one of them. We didn't push for paving pre-construction. Matter of fact, I made an agreement with Mr. Lemon that I wouldn't push for it because he was adamantly opposed. Well, I got to tell you, he's been a jerk through this whole process. I mean, a jerk. I mean, we got a file on him like this thick. Your city employees will tell you he's a problem. And he's the reason that this thing is held up as long as it has. But I'd answer any questions, but again, this is in the best interest of the citizens of Cape Canaveral to approve Oak Lane. We put some quality houses down there. We're not ashamed of them. I bought one back just because the purchaser was not happy. So I gave her every penny of her money back and sent her on her way. And I can't sell it. I do have people interested in buying it right now, but without this, I can't give them clear title because it is 5 feet too far to the north, even though we had plenty of room to push the property back, the building back. So I request your approval on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, council, anybody else want to speak on it before we? I would. I don't have a card up there. This Spring, correct? Okay, come on up here. Good evening.
Alicia Spring, 126 Oak Lane, and I'd want this ordinance to pass, and I wasn't going to speak tonight until Mr. Lee did. And I just want to defend Bernie Lennon. Bernie Lennon said from the beginning, it told the city, told Mr. Lee, went to Mr. Lee and told him these houses were in the wrong place. And so Mr. Lennon has been right from the beginning, and if this had been taken care of at the beginning, we wouldn't be in this. But I won't let you disparage Mr. Lennon at this meeting. But I do hope the ordinance passes. Thank you.
All right. We're going to close public hearing and bring it back to the council.
This has been another long drawn out, and the city relied, as Mr. Lee mentioned, relied upon the survey. I don't know that we knew that it was wrong, but it depends on where you start, Pat. You know that wherever you start determines where you're going to end up with a survey. And in any event, it's come to, appears to be an agreeable for everybody. This is only the first reading of this ordinance, so it has to have one more. But
Call the question then.
I'll pass if somebody has something else on it. If not, I would.
I just want to make a point of clarity that we keep saying this is agreeable for everybody, and I would say that's true, but I've spoken to Mr. Lennon directly, and the public record shows that, and he does not believe that this is in the best interest for him. And just I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that he has made it very clear, and I think Mr. Lee made it clear that he's in disagreement, and but from everyone that I've spoke to on Oak Lane, I would agree with you that the majority has certainly came a long ways from where they were.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Sometimes we don't get the soup made perfect, but it's edible.
Mm-hmm.
Not the first time a mistake's been made. But let's move on, and we'll look for a motion if everybody's through with their comments.
Yep, I'm finished.
I make a motion that we accept ordinance number 17-2009, amending the supplementary zoning district regulation regarding Oak Lane.
I
as
second
written.
it.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion. Pardon?
Yep.
Oh. We have a motion on ordinance number 17-2019 as written. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
4.
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Thank you, team. This has been a real effort on staff's.
This will be back for a second reading at our next meeting, and it'll be finalized. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to public hearings on ordinance number 18-2019 for general fund transfers and so forth. Mr. Gorgonese.
Yep, ordinance number 18-2019, an ordinance of the City of Cape Canaveral, Brevard County, Florida, adopting amendments to the annual general fund Special Revenue Fund, Agency Fund, Capital Project Funds, and Enterprise Capital Fund budgets for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018 and ending September 30, 2019, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent ordinances and resolutions and an effective date. As you indicated, this is first reading of this ordinance. In essence, this is the annual reconciliation of the prior year's budget that the Finance Department does every year, and reconciles last year's budget, trues it up, and Finance Director's here to answer any questions.
Okay. I hope you all went in and talked to finance. I talked to Belinda, went in and saw Mr. DeLeo was gone somewhere that day. He was off making money. So, anybody have any comments?
Wow.
If not, we'll look for a motion.
Make a motion that we accept ordinance number 18-2019, adopting amendments to the annual general fund, special revenues fund, agency fund, capital project fund, enterprise fund, and enterprise capital fund budgets for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018 and ending September 30th, 2019.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance number 18, 2019 for the first reading.
Public hearing.
Or public hearing?
Yep.
Yep. Public hearing, I don't have any cards, but do I have anybody want to talk on it? I'm just going by what cards I got. Anybody? Okay, we close public hearing. Back to the council. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
4.
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember
For.
Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Okay, I do have an apology. We moved item 13, which got my sequence, and I had a card on person to speak on item 13, so I don't know, it wasn't intentional, believe me. I have one for 13 that was in the pile that was,
I think they went home.
so, who was it even? Patrick Campbell. Wrong one in this.
Okay.
Okay, we moved item 13 forward to the forward part of the agenda, so that's done. We're going to go to item 14, of which I have 3 or 4 cards on. And this is direction regarding the city-owned unpaid portion of Ridgewood Avenue. So, council, I'm going to hear public first, if you don't mind, rather than...
Certainly.
And then we'll move forward. Number 14 was a general by Bev.
Home too.
She said 14, but she's not here. Christopher Block, number 14. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. City Manager. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. My name is Christopher Block. I'm an attorney representing Ocean Oaks Condominium Association. I guess as a way of background, since I'm the first one speaking on this, back in 1993, the developer for the condominium deeded the land for the Ridgewood Avenue property extension to the city. At the time, it was intended for that land to be a connector road up to the neighboring Harbor Heights community. For Ridgewood Avenue. Recent development has made that impossible, and thankfully neither the city nor any residents or resident groups would like to see that road built. So where does that leave us now? Ocean Oaks began maintaining the land after complaints from residents, and that was despite us having no property interest in the land. The land currently has an easement over it held by Modern Inc., which is a active Florida corporation here. We deeded the land, the fee is owned by the city, and for the since 1993, we've been maintaining it for our residents. The city is at a crossroads here. The city can choose to continue to exert control over this property, And staff has recommended that it go to Planning and Zoning Board to discuss whether a pedestrian walkway or a bike path would be appropriate. If the council decides to go down that route, Ocean Oaks would like to be a part of that discussion, whether that's through planning and zoning or through additional public hearings here in front of the council. The other option available to the city would be to abandon the property by ordinance. If that's the case, we'd ask the council to please give us the opportunity to work with Ocean Woods Homeowners Association, which is the other adjacent property, to come up with some sort of agreement as to how that abandonment would work, who would get what pieces of that land. I've had initial discussions with Ocean Woods Council, and those discussions have been very positive. I'm confident if the city were to abandon their interest in the land, that we would be able to come to some sort of agreement, and I'd like for that agreement to be part of that abandonment ordinance, if possible. Given that this is a discussion item, I'm open to questions if the council so chooses. Otherwise, thank you for letting us have our voice heard today.
Wow. If I may speak, Mayor, your observation is pretty accurate from what I remember, and I was the mayor about that time. And when Ocean Woods started, I was postmaster here, so I'm quite some knowledgeable. The point that I would just like us to understand that Ocean Woods does have control over their beach path, but that's not exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about the right-of-way.
We agree with what staff's and the city attorney's conclusion was, that that dirt path is located on, the majority of that dirt path is located on Ocean Woods' own private property. There is a slight
that's
portion.
good to hear you say as a start.
Okay.
Because that's always been kind of a bone of contention. Ocean Woods can control it. It was deeded to them by Stotler Stagg, which was a company here years ago. It gets very narrow out there. There's a place that's about 3 feet wide. We're going to work on that because you can't pull a fishing cart back on that 3 foot. But I know we put in a drain from the south part of Ridgewood, in the cul-de-sac that drains over there, and I thought the city was maintaining that where we had trees there and mowing it. Am I wrong?
Ocean Oaks, our main concern when it comes to maintenance is closer to the beach side, right next to what's known as our Building B. There is an open grassy area that has some drainage, culverts in there. That has been maintained at our own cost since 1993. We're no longer maintaining that. That's the responsibility, according to the easement of Modern Inc., and certainly there'd be a secondary responsibility for the city as the owner of the land underneath it to maintain it if Modern Inc. did not.
I'm not sure we were aware of that it was our responsibility.
Well, it's not. It's a secondary responsibility. You're not the easement holder. The easement holder is Modern Inc. Under the easement and under the ordinance that was passed back in 1993, they have primary responsibility for maintenance. They have not maintained it at all. Our residents were upset about the condition of the property, and so that's when we voluntarily gifted the maintenance of the property to the city. We are no longer doing that. We have no property interest.
Okay, well, it was a small section of property, but it was an eyesore for your residents.
Absolutely, and our residents are concerned that it may revert to that. I've advised my client that if it does get to that point, they contact code enforcement, who can contact Modern Inc. That's really our only recourse, as long as it's held by the city.
Okay, I missed you up front. Do you represent the homeowner association or you represent the residents?
I represent Ocean Oaks, the condominium, which is I don't know if it's on the screen, the Ridgewood extension on the north side. The abutting property owner is the Ocean Woods Homeowners Association. On the south side, the abutting property owner is my client, Ocean Oaks Condominium Association. We were the ones that deeded the property to the city that became the Ridgewood Avenue property extension.
So you feel that between Harbor Oaks and it all can be worked out?
The message that I'm delivering here is the people that have the property interest. If the city were to abandon the property, the only properties that would have a property interest would be Ocean Woods Homeowners Association and us under statute and under case law. Harbor Heights wouldn't have any interest if the city were to abandon. If the city maintains ownership, obviously we all have an interest in it. If the city decides to maintain it, we certainly want to be part of that process in discussing what it's going to look like in the end. But to answer your question, if it's abandoned, I am confident that Ocean Woods and Ocean Oaks can come to an agreement if the city abandoned. We just want the city not to abandon until we come to that agreement, if that's what the council wants.
A survey, please, Lisa.
So I think the question before us is, do we want to abandon it? And my gut says no. I mean, I don't think that's a wise decision. And I think, yeah,
It's an important walkway there for people, for the children going to school, to catch the bus, I understand.
Kids use that
It's important for people who want to go to the beach.
If I could add some clarity to this, the walkway that is used is not part of this property, and most part of it is off of this property. That walkway is on property owned by Ocean Woods. Ocean Woods has historically not restricted access, but that has led to the public believing it was a public access. Now, Ocean Woods has said as recently as last week, I believe Donna, if you want to talk to that, there are no plans. Ocean Woods has no plans to close off access of that. But there are other residents, particularly of Harbor Heights, who are concerned that a future board at Ocean Woods might close that off. Then those two communities have no way to communicate. They don't have that bypass, that cut through. So what the city does with this Ridgewood Avenue extension is very important to that group. Now, there are several options that are enumerated in the agenda cover here. One of them is, of course, the city doesn't have to do anything. Another one is possibly a discussion of constructing a public thoroughfare on that. There are probably several other options, but what staff would like to do is see this go to Planning and Zoning Board, as this is a land use decision. And we'd like to engage our boards for community input, because we believe there are a lot of people that want to speak to this, and I'd like to see that board be the primary board for that, to come up with some recommendations for City Council. And if you do decide to send it to Planning and Zoning Board, if you could give them some direction on what they should be looking at.
I guess with that all said, Mayor, if there's nothing else, I would move for supporting the action of the recommendation of the intern city manager, and that is to send it back to the P&Z board. We'll educate the child, but we don't want to raise it.
But I've always felt that I was against when they gave Ridgewood Avenue away, because it created a lot of problems on Atlantic Avenue. As far as there was, Tin Roof was a good example. That project was landlocked. And they had to go through a lot of court fights and so forth to get a cut onto that.
Yeah.
Onto Atlantic. You were here, Rock, you know about it. So, and North Banana River Drive was another big mistake, in my opinion, that our city fathers years ago did. They gave away that right away. Both roads were supposed to run all the way from Cocoa Beach up into the port. And we wound up with these situations. And of course, over the past years, we corrected a lot of it, but this port right here, that's the only hope that people that got from Harbor Heights to go to school without walking out to A1A or North Atlantic, I mean. If Ocean Oaks, like Mr. Morley says, that board can just say, you aren't coming through here no more, it's private. Mm-hmm. And we've had some dealings with Ocean Woods that have been tough over the years, and I've been involved with them, a few, and I don't propose giving that to anybody. I propose myself, and I'm not gonna caucus the Planning and Zoning Board. But I personally would disagree with giving that to anybody. I would like the city to take that and make that a thoroughfare for the children, because I think it's a safer passage than what's over in Ocean Woods. If you walk through Ocean Woods, it's more open. And I think that the city should keep that property strictly for usage of children out of Harbor Heights or people from Ridgewood Avenue wanting to go to the beach without any interference. That's my input on it, and I'm hoping that the P&Z board goes along with some sort of thing like that. And I don't have a problem with Ocean Oaks being partner in maintaining it with the city or whatever, but
Thank you, Mr.
I think it needs to stay the way it is and be a public right-of-way. So that's my input, Council.
Yep, I agree, and I do want to, that is a point of clarity, and thank Ocean Woods for always keeping that open and for the public, and then their good faith in saying, I got a chance to walk that property, and a lot of, as Mr. Morley explained, bad information out there floats naturally through, and when I walked it with Donna and got a chance to understand how this came about, it's been, in good faith, and I can understand Ocean Oaks' perspective, certainly. And so if we can hold it, as the mayor said, and it sounds like the sentiment of this council, and in the direction I would give, would be to make this, maintain it, improve it as much as we can, and work with the abutting parcel owners there, and try to, it's one of the best kept secrets in Cape Canaveral for runners, and once you get back there, a little hidden area, and as you get towards the beach, that becomes Ocean Oaks property, and that easement and that access is a separate issue as when I met with them, but we have to understand what's ours, and ours meaning the public property, and thankfully we've had good neighbors that's allowed them to walk through there. And moving forward, like Councilmember Randall said, I think there are some tight areas that get a little tricky, but hopefully we do not abandon it, and we can hold and make the most of this property. And that's, I think, right up P&Z's alley. So thank you. Makes sense to go to them.
That's very well
Andrew,
presented.
you have something, Andrew?
As long as it goes through the proper process,
Oh, yeah, no,
and, step by step, we'll get it done.
I agree.
Mr. Brown?
I
Through?
agree.
Everybody through? Public hearing? Anybody got a card? I got one card on it. Mrs. Kellum? And anybody else that would like to talk, you're more than welcome. Already missed all the football games.
This is a long meeting.
Get used
I
to
just would like to say that I live in Harbor Heights, and my kids used to walk through there to go to Cape View. I would like to see the city keep it and make a really nice walkway, either paved or with wood or whatever, and keep it as natural as possible, but not let any cars go through there. We don't want cars, just walkable, bikeable little path through there and into.
Whoa, you're getting into the area that Harbor Heights didn't want. I was here when that was proposed to put bullards there and make it 3 feet wide, but motor scooters and motorbikes would
Oh,
go
no,
through.
no. I'm saying bikes, like if you wanted to ride your bike.
Not
through
motor scooters.
Not motor scooters.
Okay.
No. And just, as the children go to Cape View, and keep it as natural as possible.
We got to remember, we got a stormwater area right down at the end of that street too, so it's something we have to consider what we do with it. But it's something that I'm against giving it away. I think we need to keep it. But that'll come with the P&Z people. So, Council? Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I don't have a card, but
Sorry, come on up.
first time I've ever been to one of these meetings. I moved here a year and a half ago from California. I live in Harbor Heights now. My house is right there. And just wanted to say that I'm happy to hear you recognizing how safe this path is for bicycling to school and everything. Quite a few of my neighbors use it. Harbor Heights is kind of going, I'm seeing more and more kids in Harbor Heights. Just for the short time I've been there, more families, it's a generational thing. So I just want to say thank you very much. I'm going to be riding to my son's school via that path, and I didn't want to go out to Atlantic, so thank you.
Wow.
You got it, yes, sir.
Another happy resident.
Well, one of them anyway. Okay, are we through? Everybody commented? So we need a motion to,
If we go to 3 or 4 in the morning, we'll probably convert some more.
I move, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to send this to the P and Z board to, with the leadership of our new city manager and Dave Dickey's recommendations, community development director, to capture what we talked about today, in short, to maintain it, to keep it, to not abandon the property, and to respect the two abutting parcel owners to the best of our ability.
That to include possibility of public improvements.
favor that.
I don't, if we want to clarify public improvements such as, a recommendation from P and Z. I don't think this council be
Maybe
scared
a
of that.
soft paved bike path or something, just walkable, something to walk on, not stumble through grass or whatever.
Yes.
But I would like, and also work with the Ocean Oaks people on what we do there. I don't want to just do it without letting those people be involved. So we have a motion and a second to, we have a second? Did we get a second?
second.
Okay. To pass item number 14, the city-owned unpaid portion of Ridgewood Avenue. Call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown,
4.
Mayor Hogue,
4.
Councilmember Morrison,
4.
Councilmember Randalls,
For the motion.
Councilmember Raymond.
4.
Okay. That brings our agenda to a close. And it's a little late, but if you want to do a report, I know everybody.
Just a
I've
little.
heard about the last meeting or two, but no reports. But let's do, if you want, and keep them sweet and short.
Okay.
Mr. Randalls, did you hear?
No.
Okay.
Pass.
Oh,
I
good.
have one. I have a
Well,
report. I have a report.
Yeah,
Just
go
a few
ahead.
things that I've done for the city. I did give the speech September 25th at Port Canaveral about A1A, which is our top priority, and that was to the Brevard delegation. That went very well. I have received some positive feedback from some of the members there, and a handwritten note from Tyler Soroy. So I think that's very, very good for us as a city. October 4th, we had Friday Fest, and we dedicated the mural, which I think is a beautiful addition to our city. And it increases our cultural and our art. I think all these things up our visibility. I noticed tonight as I was coming over, a woman stopped her car. She was taking a photo of the mural. So these things are wonderful for us. Another thing, October 7th and 8th, 7th or 8th, one of those days, they all get mixed up. I went to a tree planting that was sponsored by Fair Villa, and it was in honor of the LBGT group, whatever. And that was a wonderful thing to see, too. A new tree in Manatee Park. 2 or 3 or 4 trees, Tim? 5 trees, wow. I missed out. I only helped dig one and throw my shovel, and you might have seen my picture, but whatever. Anyway, last night at Space Coast League of Cities, as I want to say a couple things about that, the scholarship committee is ready. I went at 4 o'clock there for the meeting, and the board meeting didn't start until 5:45, but I talked to the scholarship committee, and we are ready to go. And last year, I want to say that we had 2 city staff apply, and they really did score very, very high. And I was very proud that they were there, and I was proud to represent the city. And I think we've improved it again, and hopefully we will have people apply for that scholarship. It is, I would like to make it more than $2,500, but please pass the word around. It's on the website for Space Coast League of Cities, and I have proposed to the board that we increase the amount of money, because $2,500 doesn't go too far today for books and items that are needed digitally. I think that's about it. And I already told you that the priority is the resiliency plan and also the lagoon, and that will be going to Tallahassee by the advocacy group from Space Coast League of Cities. The only other thing, I have one other thing. If you ever know of a child who needs a bed, I was invited to go to a bed giveaway by Ashley's Furniture at NASA. They gave away 50 beds to children that don't have a bed. A lot of grandparents were bringing up grandchildren, and it was an amazing event. They had dinner there, they had a tour of NASA. They not only received the bed itself, they received the bedding, pillows, games, toys, books. It was an amazing thing to see. And I was really glad that I went to that. But this can be done through the school advocacy program or through the counselor. That's how it all started. There was one family that had 6 sons, and they were expecting their 7th son. I know it's hard for some of us to realize that some kids don't have a bed to sleep in. But this was really a wonderful thing. They had caricature paintings and face painting, whatever. It was great. So just want to alert you, talk to me about this if you know of any situation like that. And we have a lot of people out there willing to help. They've given away 90,000 beds in the United States. It's amazing. It was just unbelievable.
I do want to talk.
knew it.
The ships, Disney and Carnival also gives away their beds periodically with mattresses and stuff. And I help load them on the trucks, so they're available if people need them.
Good. Glad to know that.
Just want to thank you, Mia, for stepping up for 30 days and holding the fort down, steady hand on the wheel, and courageous and did good. And thanks to all the staff through this transition for stepping up. And I know council's all proud. I speak for all of us here. And yeah, it's, gosh, tough meeting, long, but at the end of the day, I respect everyone up here very much. And congratulations, Todd, to you. And thank you so much for taking the time to make yourself available to listen to, things that you think are important to me, and then sharing what you thought was important. Anthony, thank you very much for the time you spent with me going through some issues. And Dave,
Pleasure.
everyone, this week it's been busy, but it's been very, very helpful. So I look forward to moving. I'll get those 4 items on the next agenda. I'm not going to bring them up during the reports, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I concur with Councilman Morrison. I think this is going to be a new beginning for the council and the way we carry out business and the way we conduct ourselves. I'm looking forward to a new start. Thank you.
I don't have much other than to congratulate Todd. Like I say, I've known Todd for day one, and Mia also. You both do a great job. You all do. Staff does wonderful, believe it. If you really connect with them, you really can learn. They know more about what's going on than we do. But I do want to thank Todd for stepping forward, and Mia, I want to thank you for your service. It was great the month that we had. And I only have one thing. I did have the Republic of Taiwan came here, met with Todd and I maybe 6 months ago about their economic developments that they could bring to Brevard County. They do focus out of Miami, and we met with them and showed them basically areas and things that of their interest, and they were very enthused with this area about coming up here and doing some economics in the Brevard area, not mainly Cape Canaveral, but this area. And being right next door with the launching facilities, they were all enthused about what they can get involved with, which they did have a satellite on one of the launches here back about 2-3 months ago, which they came up here for that, Mr. Chen and his secretary. And then I had the opportunity they invited me to come down to Miami and celebrate their celebration, which went on all week. I went down for a couple of days for their 108th birthday, I guess you would say, of them being a republic. And took a proclamation down recognizing that for them, and had a very good tie-in with Mr. Chen and his secretary, who is also named Chen, but it's spelled different. But anyway, it was a very pleasant trip, but I don't recommend Miami to anybody. But it was very enjoyable to see them again, and they were all full of enthusiasm like normal when they were here. So that's all I have to report, and I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know it was a very belaboring meeting, but we'll get through it. We'll get through them. Thank you. Meeting adjourned, unless y'all have.
I just want to say thank you to the directors for the confidence you put in me. I believe that I'm here because of that confidence. You're a hardworking, dedicated group. And I want to say on behalf of the directors and myself to the council, we've got this.
You know it. Yeah. Mr. Gargani, did you have anything?
Report. Nope.
Staff? Anybody, staff want to